Absolutely thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome you to the conference today and to have the opportunity to introduce the conference theme and to introduce the speakers. I've got quite an easy job this year because I'll just be doing a bit of a session a bit later on looking at some of the resources to support personal guidance, but I'm going to be relying on the experts today, and we've got some brilliant speakers lined up, so I'm going to introduce those in a few moments. But before I do so, I just want to spend a bit more time to help you settle into the conference today, to know what to expect, and to get familiar with the theme of maximising, building resilience to maximise personal guidance. So what we're trying to do today, it's mainly two outcomes for the conference. First of all, by the end of today, we want to give you the opportunity to have reflected on modern day arrangements for personal guidance and to have been introduced to new approaches. Also, we want you to have identified the importance of supporting learners to build the resilience, self-awareness and career management skills to empower them to make the most of personal guidance. So that's what we're going to be doing quite a lot of today, to be able to make sure that young people are ready for personal guidance and young people are actively engaged in their personal development along the way. So Complete Careers, we're a small organisation based in East Midlands, but supporting the whole of England and even internationally at times too. We've got a team of 15, 13 of which are careers guidance practitioners, and we've got Lucy and Peter in the office that do a bit of everything really in between. So we don't have a whole team of tech-savvy people behind us, so I'd ask if you can have a little bit of patience with us in case there are any technological glitches. It is being recorded, so we'll be working on it and we'll get it right, but if there are any glitches, just have a bit of patience with us and we'll resolve it. Your microphones are muted, and that's just so that we don't get lots of interference on the call today, but we would invite you to be please being as interactive as you possibly can, using those methods that Peter outlined a few moments ago in the chat and using Twitter. And again, there's a final reminder there of that Twitter handle and the Twitter hashtag. So yeah, the conference will be recorded and it will be uploaded to the website next week for you to be able to access along with the slides from the sessions today. So hopefully you would have all obviously seen the agenda, and you'll see that we've got a great range of speakers lined up. We've also got some regular screen breaks to give the opportunity to just have some regular breaks in between and stretch your legs and replenish the mugs, of course, too. So I just want to start now by introducing the theme of personal guidance and maximising personal guidance. And I think really kind of like mirrors my own journey really in career development. So I started in early 2001. And, you know, at that time, connections were just coming in. And I think quite often now we can look back, possibly even with rose-tinted glasses with connections, to think, well, you know, remember the good old days. And in many ways, it certainly was that, because we had that wraparound service, making sure that people didn't fall through the safety net. But I don't think it's really necessarily fair to say that connections was fantastic for personal guidance or careers advice, or whatever we called to it at the time, because it was mainly really resources around those that were hardest to help. And in many ways also, you know, it was more about helping people to overcome barriers to learning rather than actual careers guidance or personal guidance as such. We then obviously had a significant shift in the Education Act Amendment in 2012, 2013. And then we had the Gove legacy in the middle there, who did whatever he possibly could to kill careers guidance whatsoever. And it kind of, in 2014 statutory guidance, he kind of said, well, anybody can do it really, role models, alumni, mentors, and careers guidance practitioners too. That's paraphrasing, of course, but that was the tone at the time. And obviously since then, we've come a long way really, and we've had the Gatsby benchmarks in the strategy 2017, and then the statutory guidance, where we've had more language around everybody should be getting personal guidance by the age of 16 and a further opportunity after 18. And to start with, there was that expectation that everybody should be meeting all statutory guidance, all Gatsby benchmarks kind of thing, expected to by the end of 2020. And more recently, we've kind of had that changed about more that every school should be using the Gatsby benchmarks to quality assure their provision. And I think that's really healthy, because what we saw really in those early days from 2018 onwards was that everybody was trying to get to meeting, making sure that all learners got full guidance kind of thing. And therefore was stretching the resources quite thinly at times to make sure that the coverage was across all learners really. So now obviously there's an opportunity to really reflect and review personal guidance, because we can look back over those 10, 20, 30 years to say, well, yes, there've been some pockets of fantastic provision and excellence in provision, but more recently, I think really, it's been around to the school to get it right, to be able to look at the statutory guidance, to look at the needs of the learners, and to be able to try and think about what approaches work best. And obviously a lot of that really is about working with qualified personal guidance practitioners to be able to utilize their skills and experiences effectively. So what we'll be doing today is spending a lot more time to actually start to reflect that, to actually open the box a bit then to say, well, let's start challenging the norm then really. So, you know, taking it right back to, well, what is personal guidance or careers advice? You know, what should we actually call it? Should it be more career coaching these days? Do we need a rebrand? Do all learners need to get the same? What does good look like? How long should it last? All these kind of things to be able to really start to challenge that norm. We'll also be looking a lot more about, well, how do you actually build the foundations to be able to maximize career or personal guidance? So making sure that learners get a good quality careers program as an absolute minimum, and have the opportunities to build their self-awareness and get lots more experiences and the opportunity to reflect on those, to build their awareness of their self, their skills, their qualities, to be able to move forward and make the most of guidance. I did a bit of training earlier this week with colleagues from courseware education, and I've actually asked to pinch this slide because I thought it was quite helpful, because I thought it summarizes a bit what we're trying to do today with the theme. And that's really, this slide is really about ownership. So, you know, I guess it's less important what the words on the right actually mean with exploration, choice and application, and more about the sentiment, because we talk a lot about information, advice and guidance, or careers education, information, advice and guidance. And sometimes when you look at IAG, you can think that maybe the learner or the client might have quite a passive role in that. They're getting information, they're getting advice, or they're getting guidance. And it's time for a culture shift really, to make sure that we're talking more about, this is going to be learner owned and client owned, and it could be exploration, their choices or their applications, or other words that have that meanership of their ownership in the journey. So we've got some fantastic speakers today. I think really we've got record numbers for the conference today signed up, and I think that's really based on those that speakers, the theme that we've got, and the speakers that we're providing you with today. So in a moment, Leanne's going to kick us off, and then we've got Graham Feek from Greenwood Academy Trusts on character building and resilience, and the extracurricular type of activities that they do across the trust. We've got Sam Trickey from Gloucestershire College, who's going to be talking about the triage approach to personal guidance. We've got Rachel Kitley, who's principal at Cowes Enterprise College, and she's going to be really looking at an effective careers programme, the CEIA, to make the foundations for G. And then I'll come back a bit later on and talk a bit more about some resources that can help you with personal guidance. So certainly enough from me, and it's my absolute privilege to be able to welcome Leanne Hamley to the conference to talk more about modern day careers guidance. Been trying to get Leanne to join our conferences for a few years, but a lot of our themes has been more about the actual programme and statutory guidance kind of thing. So as soon as we thought about doing one on personal guidance, it was natural to come to Leanne. And And if you haven't already got Leanne's book, I'd certainly encourage people to be able to look into that, to build onto the theme. But without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Leanne, and really looking forward to the session.
Thank you very much, John. Can you hear me okay? Is everything okay? Lovely. Well, it's a delight to see the names of people that are here and people who I've met in person, but a lot of you virtually, so very lovely to meet you. Yes, that's me, and that's my website. And please do connect through LinkedIn. It would be great to keep the conversation going. So, modern day career guidance. Now, those of you that know me and read the book, you'll know the relevance of the penguins. But if you don't know the relevance of the penguins, it will become apparent later. So, as John said, some great questions for the conference. What is quality personal guidance? But we know there are challenges, time and resources. And so how can we meet those challenges? We're going to look at a couple of ideas there. Okay, so let's talk before we start about quality personal guidance. And metaphors, you'll also know I love metaphors. The stickiness of metaphors, they stick in people's minds. And they're very useful for your colleagues, because some of your colleagues may not fully understand careers work and still relate it to the ladder. I think Gove had this understanding of careers, actually, especially if their careers have been a ladder, where you decide where you want to be. You say, this is where I'm going to be in 5-10 years time, and this is how I get there, and I need the information, and I need CVs. And we know that it's much more complicated than that for a lot of people. Some people still have a ladder, or we have bits of a ladder. So when you're trying to communicate your work with other people who may not fully understand, that's really to shift the metaphor that reflects the more modern understanding of careers and careers work. And that's where the scaffolding or the crazy paving, a lot of you will be familiar with the crazy paving, that you have to lay it yourself, and it's in hindsight, you can see the pattern. And one of the ones I really like is the building wall, because you can go sideways, upwards, you can take the easy route, the harder route, and you need it, some people go it without the safety net or without the wires, but you can make it less risky by having somebody to help you and the cables. And so we're talking here about the modern career guidance, modern personal guidance, but we've obviously got to start with a modern concept of career. And in those conversations with your colleagues and others, I've got a few definitions, because sometimes metaphors don't work for everybody. So there's a few definitions for you. What we're trying to communicate is that it's more than paid work. And I saw earlier on in the chat, someone said, how does this relate to SEN? And it's not just SEN, but some people may struggle to secure paid work, but they're still going to make a valuable contribution. I don't like the word unemployed, do you mean, because people may be still very active, engaged with other roles. So career is much broader than paid work. It's paid and unpaid, it's voluntary work, it's being a student, it's all of, if you look at the definition of work, it's the effort that's expended for a result. And even more so now we're talking about those who are in paid work, decent work. So talking about what we mean by career and what we mean by work is a really good starting place for understanding modern career guidance. The implications of the modern career is that we need more than information, we need more than the ability to go through recruitment and selection processes. And internationally, the language has shifted from career planning to career development and career management. And most countries now have blueprints or frameworks outlining the career competencies that people need for the journey. And there's a lot of crossover regardless of the country that you get the blueprint or the career, the career development framework from. But just to summarize, some of them are very familiar. So on the left, if you think you're going on a journey, you're going to need this for this career journey. Self-awareness, that self-clarity of your interests, your strengths, your values. You're going to need more than information. You're going to need information management skills, the ability to research and make sense of things. Decision-making, not just once, but again and again. CVs, applications and interviews. And perhaps they're the more sort of traditional competencies that we're aware of. And on the right, and it's really interesting, the next speaker's going to be talking about resilience, and that's going to be fundamental to their ability to navigate this complexity. And we know from the research that mindset and your network of support are really critical. And so they're ones that we probably always needed, but have become more noticeable, or we're giving more recognition to. So career competencies, much broader than perhaps they used to be. We're going to have a go at rating yours. Now, this is a little activity. I'm hoping you're used to Mentimeter, but if you're not, either get your phone out or go to another screen. And I want you to search for menti.com, and your voting code is going to be 64215861. And we're going to look at, because we're all on this career journey, we're going to look at, well, let's take some of those key competencies and let's see how much of a strength they are for us. Okay, so I'm going to, there's your voting code, but it will come up again if you're missing it, because I'm going to stop sharing that and I'm going to go to Mentimeter. And we're going to present, so put in your answers, and then we'll see what comes up. To bear with me. Oh, wow, this is great. I'm hoping you can see that. John, can people see my?
Yeah, absolutely, Leanne. I can see that.
Good.
The bars moving up and down looks great.
Yeah. So you can see here, this is like, none of us are perfect. We all have some career competencies, strengths, and other ones that we still need to be working on. And stepping outside the comfort zone, even for us as adults, can be tricky, especially the longer we've been in a career. But we know that young people, even though we give them the information, it's still perhaps staying with what's familiar. Very, very common. And staying hopeful when things are tough. Do you have that resilience, that hope, how critical that is? And decision making, how many of us say, oh, I'm rubbish at making decisions? So brilliant. Any further ones, just keep popping them in. We will save these, so we will send them out afterwards. But this is something that actually we can do with our young people, our students, our learners, is helping them understand that career learning, and I'm going to talk about personal guidance in a moment and about its role within this, is more than information. It's more than having knowledge. It's also, you do need to know yourself, but there are other career competencies that people need for this journey, and helping them understand those and to understand how they relate to those is part of career learning. Okay, so let me just keep popping those in, because as I said, we will keep that for the end. I'll save that and we'll see the results. So where does personal guidance fit in then? If we know that career learning is about gaining these career competencies and developing resources for the journey, where does personal guidance fit into this? Well, there's quite a few myths about it. You can see there's a sorting hat from Harry Potter, that somehow we've got this magic ability. You go and see a careers advisor, you're going to come out sorted, knowing where you're going, what you're going to do. And they'll be able to have this magical ability to tell you where to go. Of course, we never tell people what they ought to do. Or we're a walking computer. We have all the answers in our heads. And there's some myths that people have. And this is where the penguins come in, because the iceberg I found the iceberg a very useful way of explaining what personal guidance is about. So my mouse just froze for a moment. So the reason why we use the iceberg metaphor, John was talking about advice and information and guidance. And traditionally, advice and information is seen as responding to the needs that people present. So people might ask for information, we give them information. They might say, I want to know my options, we go through the options with them. And that's the tip of the iceberg. They are what people present, the initial question, how can I help you? And out they come. And sometimes, as I said, some of those presenting needs we can't do, like telling them what would be best. We can help them make that decision. And other people don't have any presenting needs at all. They turn up and go, I don't know, just been sent. Even though you have done all the preparation. So they're the presenting needs. But our theory and our research tell us, as I said, that actually there's an awful lot more going on for that person. And Egan called them blind spots. There's things they may not be conscious of. There's things that they may not understand we can help them with. So, you know, it's very unlikely that a student would come and say, you know, actually the problem is my mindset. I've got a rather fixed mindset, and you know, I'm really fixated on this one thing, and I'm unwilling to explore more widely. But that might be the high leverage need. That's the other term that you can use, the high leverage need, the thing that will make the most difference. So there's an awful lot going on below the iceberg, and that's where the career research and the theory comes in, because it tells us, evidence-based, what's actually affecting their decisions. So personal guidance has been used as an umbrella term for everything that goes on in that one-to-one conversation. But the iceberg helps to explain how sometimes it's more of a light touch, it's advice and information, and other times it's more in depth and it's exploring that story and helping the individual gain a better picture of what's going on for them and then addressing some of those needs. I want to say a little bit more about the field of vision, because this is one of the biggest impacts, I think, on young people's career decision making. If you imagine you're standing in a field, that's your life experience to date, and you've got these fences around that field, and those fences are the boundaries, and they've kind of been set by life experience, what you've been introduced to, what's familiar, the norms, cultural norms, and you know what you've experienced rewards for. And career learning is about pushing, isn't it, that fence, so that people can see what's beyond that fence, to get beyond the myths and to get beyond what they've been exposed to. Personal guidance does the same, except it does it in an individual level, because sometimes it's said to explore that story, their myths, their values, their identity, their need to belong. It's like a private conversation, something that needs to be done in a safe environment without their peers around them. And to have it reflected back, because they may not be fully conscious of it, and gently challenged. And to be gently challenged is good in that one-to-one relationship where trust has been established and rapport, and they feel safe enough to actually have that take place. And the reason for me sort of obviously explaining this is that it kind of explains why the recommendation is 45 minutes, or between, in the What Works book, is between 30 minutes and an hour, and more often, frequently than once. But we know the resources are tricky there, so that's why I want to talk about this. We need to understand what in-depth guidance is, why it needs the time, why it needs the resources. If you are interested, by the way, and you want to understand more about that process, I've given you a link there. It's on my blog, and you can see the results of over 600 career practitioners and the key questions and activities they use to explore below the iceberg line. And to, as I said, their activities as well. We can over-rely on questions. We want this to be a multi-sensory experience, using activities, visuals, being as creative as possible to help that person express their story, but also be gently challenged to push those fences back a bit and to get more comfortable with stepping outside the comfort zone. So, having explored the story, that career practitioner then needs a toolkit to help address needs. So I've just put a few things there that tend to be in their toolkit. Again, more than what people might realise, so they understand that career practitioners are good at research and information and perhaps self-awareness, but also decision-making methods. You know, the pros and the cons actually isn't on its own very good. So using the whole imagination, making it more kinesthetic, because that's where decisions are made in that bit of the brain. So understanding the psychology of decision-making and supporting with decision-making. But also motivational approaches, cognitive behavioral coaching. So I've got the initials there: solution focused coaching, motivational interviewing, positive psychology. So having been trained in some of those tools. And as I said, the ability to gently reframe, not be so directly challenging, but to actually help the person through, John mentioned, should we call it coaching, using coaching techniques to help that young person realize it for themselves and therefore have greater ownership. So a lot of high level skills in that conversation. And it's part of a process. So you'll find that career practitioners do use models. Their ability is to make it natural. So this is a 3-stage model that they would have underpinning, but behind what they're doing. Helping the person agree what the personal guidance benefits are, explaining it to them in a way that makes sense, getting the rapport, all those things are needed at the beginning. Then stage 2, going below the iceberg, using a variety of techniques, and stage 3, helping them move on. But that will be tailored to the individual. If we look at Gatsby 8, Gatsby 3, it's really important that this is, it doesn't look the same for every single person. So, okay, that was a quick whistle-stop tour through what is quality personal career guidance. But the challenges, this is where we want to move on to, is that, okay, I'm saying 45 minutes, not for everybody. This is one of the things we're going to talk about. 45 minutes to an hour, great for some, but some might only need 15 minutes. So we're going to look at this varied menu, and triage is one of the topics on today's conference, which is great because this is where we need to start tailoring our service to what people need rather than the blanket interviewing approach, because we haven't got the time and the resources to do this for everybody, but also not everybody might want it. We've got to think about autonomy and choice as well. So let's dive into this area. Now, John was talking about the 2000s, which shows he's much, much younger than me. And I was working as a career practitioner in this decade. So I want you in chat to spot what do you recognize from this picture and which decade am I talking about here? Let's see what people have got. Oh yes, you're all very good for the 90s. Pat Sharp is one of them, so pop in what you, yeah, Anton Deck. We've got the PJ and Duncan, yeah, Tamagotchi, you're right, we're all giving away 2020, the drink 2020, that was vile. But yes, okay, so John, we're talking about modern day guidance, but we always look back in order to see what's good about the past that we can pinch and then move forward and go further. So we can learn. There'll be some historians amongst us here who are saying, yes, we can learn from history. So in the 1990s, these are my rose tinted glasses. There was a lot of good practice. We did have career coordinators and we had diplomas in careers education, just like the career learning diploma. This is all best practice, didn't happen everywhere. We had accreditation for career learning programs, the diploma of vocational education. Please put in chat if you remember any of these. And it did start early. It was free. Now, this is the amazing thing. Schools had this for free, but unlike with Connections, it was universal. All young people had access to career guidance with a qualified careers advisor. We had statutory career education. We still had quality awards. Careers advisors tended to do more. I was more like a consultant for school, and I'd do assemblies and small group work, big group work, and I'd sit down with the careers coordinator and we'd help design the program together. And we had longer sessions. But this is where we can actually learn, is we also had we didn't have blanket interviewing. Not everybody had the same. They did it. I'm saying this wasn't universal, but where I work, this is purely where I was in East Midlands. Blanket interviewing where everybody had the same wasn't regarded as best practice. You had a variety of offers, and some young people purely wanted a drop-in and have a clinic, or you call it now a triage session, where you can meet some immediate needs, and they might be happy with that, but you might also spot that they might benefit from a more in-depth session. Then we had targeted group work, so that if young people were coming with the same questions, it wasn't a good use of time to be using the one-to-one for just imparting information. That could be done in small groups. Now, this is something else that we can pinch. There was a combination of student self-referral, which increased their autonomy, informed tutor referral, and then the career leader and the careers advisor getting together to sift through the data to actually work out who would get what. And that didn't take away self-referral, but it was trying to prioritize who might get longer, who might get shorter. Right, so, but it wasn't all good. As I say, it was actually very patchy across the country. And then we had the targets coming in, which was silly. And careers advisors spent most of their time writing action plans rather than speaking to the young people. And it was very patchy career coordinator and career coordinator training. So, right, we're into this decade. So 2 decades, the 2000s and 2000s, that's what we call this one. For the last sort of 15 years, again, you can pop into chat what you recognize, the events and the people from the past couple of decades, and what's happening now. Okay, so some of these people I don't know, by the way. So I want to know that character with the gun and the the underpants and the shirt. I don't know what that character is. So if you could pop that into chat, I'd be very grateful. Okay, so what are we doing better? Okay, there is much more consistent employer involvement. We've got more qualified career leaders. We've got the Careers Enterprise Council with some brilliant resources nationally. We've got Gatsby. All right, so some things have definitely improved, and we're going into primary. So please pop into chat if you're around things that you know now are much better. All right. But we know that meeting the Gatsby benchmarks 8 is a tricky one, okay? So we know some schools are struggling to meet those Gatsby benchmarks, and personal guidance is one of the reasons why we are struggling. The lack of funding, lack of ring-fence funding that used to be there, the budgets, you know, it is tough. So what do we need? Okay. So ideally, we would love to start in year 10. I mean, year 11 is very late for your first contact. It would be great if there was 45 minutes. And I've got the references here. If you're thinking, well, where can I find this guidance? The last slide has got the references from where this comes from. Ideally, it should be more than once. It should be when needed, tailored to that person, customized to their needs. I talked about kinesthetic methods. It's one size doesn't necessarily relate to all people, but also one style doesn't relate to all people. So we've got to think about how we tailor it to preferred learning styles and preferred communication styles and integrate it into the program. So wouldn't that be wonderful to do that? But how? Well, of course, we've got to keep on pushing for the funding. But in the meantime, what do we do? So I've mentioned how we can bring in the varied menu, and I'll talk a little bit more about triage, and I know it's going to be picked up later in the morning. And indeed, the Compass tool now says, you know, 75% of people, of students getting a personal career guidance interview counts as 100%, because it's recognizing that not everybody needs the 45 minutes to an hour. Right? But how do we decide who? Preparation, that blended delivery. One of the benefits and best practices that have come out of the lockdown period has been the use of digital technology to have videos where career practitioners can introduce themselves, they can go on the school's website, they can explain what personal guidance is about, so they can come better prepared. And we can have a wrapped around approach using some of the other technology available to us. And then this menu, clinic sessions, small group work, so that everybody has the opportunity for personal guidance. If they're prepared for it, they understand it, it's an offer. And some might choose the smaller sessions or the group work sessions. Okay, so we need that. I want to say a little bit more about the triage, because it used to be based on whether people had a plan or not. How do you decide who might need more help than others? We've moved from have they got a plan or not, because we know that that's not a guarantee of success. There are very unhappy lawyers. There are people who drop out because they've made the wrong decision. Just because they've got a plan doesn't mean they're ready. Somebody else may not know what they want to do, but be very curious, actively exploring, motivated, got a good support network. That person may not have a plan, but actually they're more ready. So one piece of data on its own isn't enough. And this is a very useful model by Jim Sampson. And it's trying to work out, based on, I started this presentation by talking about career management, those competencies, those career competencies, based on who's got high level, so rating exactly the way you did, who's got a lot of career management strength, a lot of career competence strength, and who hasn't. Do you mean who's more nervous, scared, who hasn't got a good support network, who isn't very self-aware, and they may not have good information research skills. So measuring their career management strength, and then also though looking at their life complexity, so their needs, so the school data on that. And that's the grid that helps you decide the sort of traffic light system. But it's only the first starting point, because you need a number of sources of data. Tutors can inform on people's career readiness. You've got your own insights into your cohort. If the careers advisor or your level 3 person doing triage and small group work will be able to spot people who are struggling. And then there's the student self-referral themselves. Okay, right, we're going to see what you've got in place. All right, now this is obviously all very, no judgment here, this is just being honest. I've mentioned a variety of ways in which we can deliver this. If you go to menti.com and your voting code, there's a number of options. And it's just evaluating. It'd be great to see what people have got in place, but no judgment, because we know resources and time is an issue. Right, so I'm going to stop that share and go to the next one. And I can see the answers are coming in, which is brilliant. Is that showing there, John, yet? Oh, no, it's not actually, sorry. There we go, we've got the answers, which you currently have in place.
It's showing, Leanne, sorry, I was just doing it myself.
You're okay. So look at that, this is really interesting. So yeah, we can see here, this is just like, I'm hoping you go away from here and think, oh, I don't have that, but that would be really, really good. I fancy those clinic sessions. You know, it's brilliant. Look at that, 45 minutes plus, what a great score there. That's really great. And we've got this combination, lovely, of student self-referral plus tutor referral. Now, wonderful group work on career competencies. Yeah, and look, there we go. So it might be that what I'm talking about here, that the thing we can really work on is prioritization according to career readiness rather than having a plan in place. That's something we could strengthen. Mapping the career program to career competencies. Confidential space, brilliant. So we will keep that. Keep your answers coming in, this is great. And we'll share that afterwards. Lovely. So there are ways in which we can do this, and I'm keep my eye on the time because Janet's going to tell me I've just got 10 minutes left. I just want to say a little bit more about the self-referral. And we know now there are some wonderful tools where students can book slots in themselves. And all of this encourages autonomy and choice, which is brilliant. I'm just going to share with you an example of a group work activity. Now, this is using Jenga. All right, so if you're thinking, well, how do I introduce career competencies in group work? So little Jenga, the tumbling tower, there are other tumbling towers available, and write in the career competencies on the blocks. And then they play Jenga as you normally would. And obviously, as they pull each one out, they've got some coaching cards. They ask each other. So if they pull out decision making, they'd ask each other to what extent is it a strength? Can they think of a time where they've made a decision? How would they advise somebody else to make a decision? So you have some peer coaching activities around there. But at the end of the activity, of course, the tower will fall, which gives the message that we need these in place. These are the building blocks of their career journey. And at the end of an activity like that, you get them to record their career competencies, okay, and how they feel about the future. And that can help you then as a career leader or somebody else to go through and think, right, this person hasn't referred themselves and the tutor hasn't referred them, but I can see they're actually very anxious and not feeling good about their career competencies. But also as a basis of doing this activity, that person, then you say, right, if you've put not sure and need to develop by quite a few of these, book yourself in to see a career advisor. All right, and the tutor referral form can look pretty similar. The tutors, we want tutors to understand career competencies. And if you design something like this for them, they will start to understand what it's about. Of course, that's very wordy. So if you're working in other, might decide you want more of a visual. I love the stepping stones to get across to the other side of the river. And I love this up on the wall, and the young people can tick. Do you mean the ones they feel are their strengths? You can laminate it. You can make this very creative, but you get them to understand that information is only one of those stepping stones. It's not enough to get across to the other side. There we go, Janet. You'll be very happy. 5 minutes to go, because I just want to see if there's any questions coming out. We've covered a lot, and there are the references that I've used, so please feel free. And also connect with me via LinkedIn or via my website if you want to have a more personal discussion about this. But I just want to stop and see if there's anything immediately in chat. Yeah, a few people not in education, so please excuse me for that. So obviously I'm doing it quite generally. Any questions at all that have come out, John, that you've spotted that you want me to answer? Anybody got any questions? My life is flashing before me.
I think that was brilliant, Leanne. And I think what we'll try and do is hopefully we've got a question panel later. So if there are things, I'll try and make sure they've been pulled out during breaks or collated, and then with a bit of luck, we'll throw them at you there.
Yeah, and actually I've just seen there's a few things. Would it be possible to have another look at the group activities? If you just want me to put that one back up, I can do that. It's as I said, it's just thinking through career competencies, just working out how we introduce these in a creative way. Another one actually is to make the link to a computer game. If you take something like Minecraft, I know some of you have done this before, but just to get to understand that, in order to, in Minecraft as a computer game, you have to create your world, and you need tools and you need resources. And their future is going to be very similar. This is going to be the first time they're responsible for creating it themselves. It's been mapped out for them before now. And the tools and the resources are those career competencies. And you can have them on cards. I mean, I've got them on cards. That's the Career Navigator set. But you can create your own, and they can do a card sort. Ones I have, ones I don't feel so strong with, ones I need to develop. And as I said, give them some coaching questions to ask each other, such as, when have you done that before? What makes you say you have it, don't have it? What advice would you give somebody else as to how to develop it? So really important to get this across, and it helps you then as a career leader, you can then map the career program for them and say, look, this is what you're looking to develop, and look at our career program, our wonderful career program, and how it's designed to help you with that. But also, if you're struggling, there's an individual career conversation that can take place with a qualified career practitioner, and they can really help you work out which ones you've got, which ones you need to work on, and how to do it. And that helps them to understand personal guidance a lot more. So thank you. Yes, there we go. A couple of minutes to go. I don't know whether there are any other ones I can directly answer. And there's some lovely examples of good practice. So well done, everybody who's really working towards this, with trying to get that in-depth process in place and thinking about resources and how we get creative with the resources that we have. That one-to-one personal guidance is precious in terms of a resource. So let's make sure we use it for what it could be used for, and have other things in place like videos or small group work to meet some of the more sort of tailored information needs. So as I said, some questions coming up. I will be around obviously for the panel, so I will ask this. Yeah, experienced advisors access training, coaching techniques. There's some brilliant webinars. If you're a member of the CDI, there's lots of free webinars on coaching techniques, but also just short courses. And I must admit, I'm one for reading books, or I'm one for watching videos and giving it a go. You know, so there's lots of things available, lots of ways in which you can do that. So thank you very much. I will end it there because you've got 3 minutes to do the handover.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. What I wondered if you could perhaps think about and share with us a bit later on is, one of my concerns is there a agreed list of what we all might think are the career competencies? Because that's one of the issues, isn't it? You know, what employers want, what young people want, what teachers think people need, you know, there's the whole mishmash. Yeah. And it's a bit like skills, you know, people identify some skills and then they identify other skills, and it all depends, you know. So it's I think something that perhaps again needs addressing, so that we are maybe all singing from the same hymn sheet, if that sounds right. So
yeah, and you're right, there's a lot of frameworks out there. I mean, we've got the career development framework obviously from the CDI, but it's good to keep your eye on some of the others. The Scotland, Skills Development Scotland, and it's a brilliant website. I'm sure lots of you use it. My World of Work is really designed around career competencies. That's a good one to have a look at. Careers Wales, the Careers Wales website. You'll see the overlap and you'll see the similarities. And you're right, we all should be singing to the same hymn sheet. But again, it's nice to tailor it as well to your students. Do you know what I mean? So you don't want loads of them. Some of them are going to be, so for those working in the SEN, you know, you might have more of a focus on independence, independent living, you know, and to bring that in, you know.
Yes, I mean, you're right. One size doesn't always fit all, but, you know, as you say, it's interesting, and it's about what we can actually teach as well. As my background, as you know, is a teacher, so it's, can we deliver some of it as curriculum learning?
Yes, yes, I will. I will definitely pick that up in the. I will give a thought of it for when we have the panel later on.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. As you said, I warned Leanne I'd cut her off. Leanne told me she'd be very good, and she has been brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I've only recently got hold of your book and I'm beginning to read it, and I'm fascinated. So we recommend that. And we now have a 10-minute screen break, and then it'll be Graham when we come back. So please do skip to timings, and we will see you all again at 10:40. Thank you. Are ready?
This meeting is being recorded.
We are ready for Graham. Thank you very much for coming along today, Graham. And we at Complete Careers have been working with the Greenwood Academies Trust for quite a while now, and that's a brilliant map showing where they all are, because having stopped travelling around the country in the pandemic, I never know quite where the schools I'm talking to are. But thank you, Graham. I will keep an eye on your time and give you a warning if necessary. So thank you, and over to you.
Okay, thanks very much. Firstly, thank you for inviting us along to talk a little bit today about what we get up to in Greenwood Academies Trust. So, as you said, Jack, there's a map there that shows where we operate. We've got 36 academies across central and eastern England. We work in areas of relatively high economic and social deprivation. A lot of the areas that we work in are going to be areas that are significantly impacted over coming years in terms of how the economy in those areas operates, around how the job market is changing, particularly being focused on the impact of technology. So careers and employability for us has always been a huge priority. Hence, we know I've worked with Complete Careers and others for many years on this. We've got a small careers team led by Sean and Rachel, I think, are at the conference today, that have put together something we're really proud of, which we wanted to talk a little bit about today. So probably like a lot of you, recently I've been getting out to some actual real face-to-face conferences. So it's novel to get back to the online events. So rather than me worry about tripping up on stage, I'm not going to worry about whether the dog's going to be quiet, and that's always a lottery. Particularly if the next door neighbour's cat runs across the lawn. And also, if anybody decides to have a bath in the bathroom and sing, like they did at a conference I was at several months ago, and I was having to explain it wasn't me singing, it was somebody in the bathroom next. So hopefully it'll go smoothly today. If not, it's all part of the ride. So Leanne started with penguins. So I'm going to start with Freddie Mercury. I'll come back to Freddie later on. So anybody that can have a guess maybe in chat now why I want to talk about Freddie Mercury, other than the fact that I love Freddie Mercury, and any excuse to talk about him, I take any opportunity. But we'll come back to Freddie, because I think what he does, this picture indicates some significant changes in skills and employment that we all probably need to understand as much about as we can, in order to help the young people that we work with thrive in their careers going forward. So we'll come back to Freddie, but anybody that can have a good guess as to why I've put him up there would be a gold star later on. No doubt over the course of the day, you'll see various stats, and I know you'll be more familiar with than I am with a lot of the stats around what employers are saying are really important in terms of the skills that they need from their current and future employees. This hasn't changed for years and years in many respects. Employers have said consistently for many years that the skills of not just young people, but people in the UK are not what they need to be as employers. And, hence one of the reasons that our productivity has consistently been towards the bottom of the G7, along with other reasons. But I thought I'd just pull up just some aspects of this report that was published last year, that I think are just a reminder of some of the challenges that schools have got, and I guess why we're all here today trying to do the best we can to skill up our young people. So they were the top 4 drivers of skills gaps according to employers. Quite an extensive survey carried out, and you'll see that the 3rd and the 4th reason there are around really guidance to young people about appropriate opportunities in various sectors, and a lack of awareness among learners about different routes into work. So, much back to, as Leanne was talking about earlier, giving young people the opportunities to sort of explore what those possibilities are and think of things that previously they never even knew existed as job lines and so on. And when we get a bit further into the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about how we try and do that. The couple of paragraphs there, I think, are also quite interesting, in that firms are expecting to significantly increase the need for people with workplace skills not linked to qualifications. So I think this has been a theme for quite a few years, but to see the extent there, 44%, that's a real challenge, because as much as we try and help young people develop very broad skills, inevitably, a lot of the skills are based upon cognitive skills, unfortunately, often to pass tests and examinations. So I think in terms of the sector, that's a big thing. And I'll come on to some of the challenges later on that we're trying to overcome. And I get frustrated about this. And I think sometimes the amount of priority put on attaining other vital skills alongside cognitive skills it is a real challenge in our sector. But 4 in 10, I said academies, 4 in 10 employers want to increase the level of investment in skills post-pandemic. Now that's great, and that indicates that there's going to be more capacity and priority to engage even further with schools, which is great. But again, in that, Leanne alluded to some of the challenges we have around resources and capacity. We've got to be able to engage in that, otherwise, sort of what's the point? So no doubt, wherever, if you walk in the same sort of place I do, that's a sign that you commonly see now in all sorts of obscure places. You know, in shop windows, walking past fields, really obscure places. There is an employment crisis at the moment, and the numbers keep bobbing up and down. But essentially, there are just about as many vacancies now as there are people unemployed. There are about 1.4 million vacancies in the UK, and about 1.4 million people that are looking for work. So give or take, a skilled workforce, you know, our economy would be a whole lot better for it. And why is that? So there's a number of reasons. I think one of the main reasons is, you know, during the pandemic, a lot of organisations had uncertain futures, a lot of sectors had uncertain futures, and some staff moved. You know, were cut out of workforces. Some staff decided actually COVID and lockdown gave them a different perspective on life and what they wanted to do in their careers, and that's changed the job market significantly, and it's created some real gaps in areas where there weren't gaps previously. Mention Brexit quickly. Brexit's had a big impact, an obvious impact. But a fundamental driver of this, and something I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about, really was the impact we're starting to see now, day in, day out, around the digital economy and this fourth industrial revolution, which everybody knew was happening and was happening pre-pandemic, but the pandemic has accelerated that by many, many years. And that has changed the landscape significantly in terms of employment, significantly in terms of some of the implications for us, you know, in this conference now, but, you know, many of the young people that we are working with. So a couple of pictures there to illustrate, I think, how things do feel like they've changed around the use of technology. So pre-pandemic, you know, we were heavily using technology for all sorts of things, often in a way that was probably in the background or doing jobs that maybe people didn't want to do. You've got Wally there collecting other people's rubbish. It was happening. It's been happening for a number of years, but it was happening in some sectors more so than others. I think it's clear to everybody now. It feels very different. It feels much more invasive. It feels as though, you know, everything that you do, everything that where you go is technology driven. You know, who would have thought that you know, go out for a pint on a Thursday night, as I do, with some of my old friends, and, you know, you can order at the bar online. You know, that 2 years ago, that was something that would never happen, but clearly you add all those things up cumulatively, and it's significantly changed the sorts of jobs that are out there. And a question that people often ask is, well, will robots take our jobs? So will robots take our jobs? And sorry, so just got a call. and that's a very good question to ask. And I think there's a quote there that I've just referred to from JFK, and I think we've got to be very aware of what the future is in terms of working out how to prepare for that. So in terms of whether robots will take our jobs, funnily enough, a report was written on this pre-pandemic by PwC. And I think for educators, there's some really powerful figures in here that bring home really the importance of us making sure that young people that we work with have got the right education and the right skills, qualifications, experiences, life opportunities going forward. So what this graphic shows is that essentially there are three waves of automation that's happening that will change our workforce. The first wave is very much about sort of algorithmic changes. So you saw that maybe in banking, finance, insurance, affecting a lot of jobs there. And actually, in that first wave, really the people that are affected most were those that had got high levels of education, degree level education, many professionals. The second wave of automation is very much around augmentation. So it's how technology is helping us humans do jobs, but do them easier, make them easier. And that is still affecting those with high levels of education, medium levels of education, but it's now starting to affect people that have got lower levels of education, however you define low levels of education. And then what you see, the third wave, where it's moving to much more autonomous ways of doing things, that's where those people that have got low levels of education will be adversely affected. And for an organisation like ours, where we work in some fairly challenging areas, and even if we're really successful and our progress measures are very strong, relatively, our levels of education could be relatively low compared to many, because of prior attainment and so on. So this is a real concern for us, a real risk. And if you look at the potential jobs at risk of automation, and then you break that down between male, female, and amalgamate all of those together, you can see a significant impact on those with low levels of education, particularly male. So many of the sort of traditional, potentially blue collar type jobs that are disappearing. So for us, this represents a huge challenge, because you saw that the map of where we work, where we have our academies, many of those areas have typically been served by quite traditional industries and business. Now, new business and technology is coming into some of those areas, but it does represent a significant challenge, and really makes us even more determined to make sure our young people are sort of skilled up to be able to respond to that. That last graphic was pre-pandemic. Obviously, hopefully we've got through the pandemic. We certainly seem to have got through a lot of it. And this report was written at the back end of last year that tried to, I guess, reflect some of the changes around the acceleration of the digital skills gap that were evident pre-pandemic, but have become more acute through the pandemic. So it's quite a good read. I've just put up a few headlines there, again, just to make the point around, there are many skills that we all need, but digital is the skill that really is the one that we've got to focus on significantly across much of what we do. The report says that across the world, employers, about 70% of global employers are struggling to appoint staff to positions they've got. That's gone up by 11% in a year. It's actually gone up 40% in 5 years. And closing the skills gap is now a bigger priority than it was before COVID. So again, that report, there are other reports as well, just give an indication about really how much more challenging things are getting around providing a workforce that have got the right skill set that employers need. So skills in a digital world, well, many of the skills in a digital world are skills that have been the skills that employers have wanted for many, many years. And you'll see that on the left-hand side. You've probably seen this many times before. It's the top 10 skills of 2025, according to the World Economic Forum. And and the majority of those skills are around problem solving and around self-management. 2 of them are very specifically around technology, but that's only 20% of those top 10. When you look at the potential jobs in a digital environment, there are numerous, and many people made the point, many of them haven't been created and we don't know what those jobs will be, but that gives you a sense of what some of the things are. Anybody that understands any of those or most of those acronyms and roles and so on, there's an extra bonus point for that. But there's a wealth of opportunities around digital careers for people that have got those digital skills, qualifications, alongside a broader set of skills as well. So I come back to Freddie. So many of the skills to be a fine artist have been the same for years and years. Whether you go back to the Renaissance in the 16th century or now, but maybe the medium in which you deploy those skills is and can be different. And the point here is that you've got one picture of Freddie Mercury that's been drawn in pencil and crayon on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side you've got a picture that's been drawn in exactly the same way using a digital pen on a high-resolution piece of software. Now, many of the skills are exactly the same. So if you're not creative, you're not going to be able to do that. But also in this world, if you then want to go into those career lines where this is of value, you need to have that digital understanding and to some extent qualification. So I think that's just a way of showing that and showing how somebody with those sorts of traits around creativity, for example, also now needs to move into having a broader palette of skills to make sure that they're able to deliver those creative skills in the 21st century. Okay, so a headline that you've probably seen as on BBC last year, and it's one of many. So why is it the case that we're heading towards this digital skills disaster? And this, I think, is really important because in terms of how we provide careers advice to young people and how we put together programs to support that and maybe to inspire them, this is really important. I think we can make a big impact here in addressing some of these issues. So, I mean, first of all, a lack of clearly defined job roles in certain fields. And that is challenging because when you see the list of new jobs that are happening, it's incredibly, I mean, some of them are quite opaque. Some of them are quite difficult to describe, even for people that have got some understanding of the sector. There's a lack of understanding and guidance about potential career paths. And I think now there's a real desire from many companies, particularly technology-rich companies, to be looking to employ their staff in different ways, and are very much looking to us, to schools, to educators, to work with young people at a much earlier age, to be getting them enthused and understand the opportunities in a tech world. The lack of relatable role models, that's a big issue for many. It's a really big issue for us because, as already said, many of the areas we operate in, the sort of industry and jobs there do not relate into maybe how that will be in the future. And quite frankly, it's difficult sometimes to make some of these professions seem interesting, and there's a particular issue with girls. So they're some of the whys. But there are lots of strategies and policies that the government, in particular, and others are putting in place to try and address a lot of this. So are they going to be successful? Are these going to help drive forward and give us the, I guess, the responsibility and the resource and the opportunity to do this? And I think in some cases it's disappointing. Some of the more recent green papers, white papers that have come out in regards to this. So if you take the education white paper that came out in March, the only mention of digital in there is around digital infrastructure and essentially access to devices. There's a digital data technology standard, and that's about safeguarding, which is absolutely right. That's really important, but nothing at all, not a mention about the need to acquire skills that are digital skills, as well as all those other skills to give our young people the best chance in the 21st century. And that's a real challenge for us, because what that then means is, when you look at our accountability system, so what are the things that really make us prioritize the things that we do in our schools? And let's be honest about it, it is about hitting those accountability measures that we have to, primary and secondary, and it is about Ofsted. And that is the reality. So it often feels like, and maybe we're different to others, but I suspect not, it often feels like we're trying to roll a big rock up a big hill, because we have all these accountability measures, and actually some of the things we're trying to achieve here about giving young people the best skills possible that will allow them to succeed don't really feature in there the way we'd want them to. And in fact, in some cases, the accountability measures mitigate against it. So, I mean, obviously, as you all know, there's lots of, there's a broader set of qualifications being developed, T levels, but they're also, in terms of GCSEs, broader GCSEs that are more cognizant of some of the opportunities in digital careers. So one would be esports. So, I can't imagine there are many of your pupils that don't engage well with esports at some level. There's sort of 500 million people a week in the world on esports. There are esports qualifications at levels 2, 3 degree level that provide great acquisitions of skills and other characteristics and qualifications that can lead to really valuable high-grade employment. None of those count in the Progress 8, Attainment 8 measures, which is a real shame. So I think there's something there in terms of how government may be engaging this. So what I've done so far, I feel like I've probably offloaded some of my frustration.
Graham, you've got 3 minutes, okay?
3 minutes, right,
Yes,
okay, I'm going to really
okay.
most through this then. Right, so, but we don't give up, do we? So what are we actually doing about this? Our approach on this is, we want to show our young people as many opportunities as possible and give them the skills to engage in those. What we've pulled together is a careers and employability framework that goes all the way back into Key Stage 1. So we've got 3 to 19-year-old pupils. We've got 3 SEND schools as well. And our careers program starts early, and we make no apologies for that. It starts at Key Stage 1, and it's around, at that point, challenging stereotypes, and then moving all the way through, and we start our personal guidance at year 10. The light bulbs on those steps, that's where we plan our employer encounters. So we plan 9 employer encounters across 3 to 19. Now, whether we don't always hit those, but we try and hit those. And what we do within our trust is to try and create the opportunities where our schools can tap into those opportunities. So that's how we try and pull it all together, and then support our academies in doing it. Now, and that is integrated into the curriculum, and it's supported by a significant amount of extracurricular type programs as well. Spoke a lot about skills, and the way that we try and then coalesce around skills is we use Skills Builder, and many of you will use Skills Builder. We find it really helpful in that it allows us to talk a common language from 3 to 19 in terms of skills. What are the skills that we are focusing on in this particular lesson, in this particular activity, and helping young people recognise the skills that are important and recording those skills as they develop them, and then understanding how proficient they are on them and working through them in a progressive way, in a consistent way across our academies. So that's something that is really integrated into what we do. I'm really going to fly through these slides now.
Yes, I'd like to, if possible.
Okay, so digital skills, that's the approach that we've got on that. We've got an approach, again, which is reception all the way through to Key Stage 5 using different programs. And increasingly, we're trying to find more innovative ways of engaging with young people. So a project I've just kicked off in Nottingham is around football, actually, Nottingham Forest, but trying to engage in young people's love of sport, and in this case, football, but actually to engage them in digital careers, and then to have a wrap around that where we're introducing all sorts of training and qualifications, skills acquisition, and apprenticeships into high-tech jobs, but through a young person's initial engagement and interest in sport. Leanne mentioned Minecraft. It's something we're starting to use now. We've kicked off a project in Nottingham University, trying to really help young people understand the digital world, not just from the perspective of their footprint, employment in it, skills in it, qualifications in it. And we're using Minecraft as a vehicle to do that, to build a digital Nottingham out to help young people acquire skills over a number of years to do that. Now, this is a program that's put in place by Microsoft, which is called Explore Digital Skills. There are 150 million jobs globally going to be created in the next 5 years around digital. And this is their attempt to engage with 25 million people on this program. So this is the free takeaway. So if you go into, skip on, if you go into Microsoft Learn, if you just put that search in, if you've got a Microsoft account, and most education organisations will have it, it's all free, it's all set up. There are numerous resources in there around digital careers, a whole load of teaching resources, digital badges, a whole load of things, which I encourage you to look at. It's something that staff can use, it's something that pupils can use, and over time you can pull together a very rich portfolio of skills and experience and qualifications for free, essentially. As I'm shooting through this and trying to bring all these different strands together, we do try and bring all these different strands together. This is the way one of our schools does it at Newark Hill, which is the primary school in Peterborough, and it tries to apply the principles of 21st century learning, and through that sort of Microsoft available technology to try and develop that, to pull together a program whereby that is delivered through the curriculum. The skills are recorded, acquired through Skills Builder. It's led to us achieving Career Mark, and we're also a Microsoft Showcase School, which is helping us to deliver all of this through a really rich digital environment, which again I think helps skill up young people and embed the knowledge. And the second free takeaway of the day, and I think sorry there's not a bit more time to cover this, because this is something we're incredibly proud of in the organisation. If you go onto our website and search Fulfilling Futures, all of these materials are there and they're free to use, and I encourage you to use them. We developed it with Complete Careers. It was during lockdown. It was funded by the Careers and Enterprise Company. And what it tries to do is to put together some really rich teaching materials, which are also geographically based across our regions, that link in specific employer opportunities to engage with young people, so they actually understand what's happening in their area around changes in employment and industry and so on, what skills they need, how they can acquire those and record them through Skills Builder, who are the different employers to potentially work with. And there are guides for teachers and pupils, and essentially acts as a logbook for every young person to record their journey, which is incredibly valuable, I guess, when it gets to the next stage of their journey. So if you take one thing away from this very rushed presentation, just take this, please, because have a look at it. I think there's some really valuable information in there for you. So I'm not sure if there's any time for questions, but if there are, very happy to take any.
If you could possibly wait until the panel for questions, we'll cull them out and you can be thinking about them. That was absolutely brilliant. You did run over, but I'm sure particularly the beginning bit was something that a lot of people probably weren't aware of, and we've gained a lot of knowledge and information, and the free resources bit is always brilliant as well. I'm sure people will be willing to have slipped a little. So it's over now to Sam, and Sam, I won't stop you till 11:35. So see what you can do. I can see your slides, Sam, but I can't hear you at the minute.
I'm hoping you can hear me now. I don't think
Welcome to Sam.
I don't know if you can see me at all though.
Doesn't matter. We can see your slide.
So good morning everyone. I'm Sam Trickey. I'm the careers leader at Gloucestershire College. I'm just going to start my timer to keep me to time, because first time I did this it took a bit longer. So thank you to Complete Careers for inviting me to this conference, and thank you to Leanne for reminding me about the resource of Mentimeter this morning, and I am definitely stepping out of my comfort zone today. I've not done anything like this before, so hopefully the tech will hold out. We did have a few tech issues yesterday, so I am going to have to do a Boris and ask Lucy if she would mind moving on the first slide for me, please. Okay, thank you. So just a little bit about Gloucestershire College. So we're a large general FE college. We have campuses in Gloucester, Cheltenham and Forest of Dean. All our campuses are set in areas of deprivation, disadvantage. We have about 2,500 full-time learners, predominantly 16 to 18, some 19 plus on levels 1, 2 and 3. A large contingency of adult and professional learners, so about 9,000, and about 1,500 apprentices. And our offer ranges from sort of pre-entry qualifications right the way through to degrees, including degree apprenticeships and T-levels. So we run 3 T-levels currently, and a new one for September is going to be our business T-level. I'm surrounded by quite a lot of selective grammar schools and quite a bit of private education in Gloucester and Cheltenham areas. And attainment in the county is pretty polarised with regards to sort of maths and English grades. Around 68% of young people are achieving maths and English grades 4 to 9 against a national average of about 64. However, the average for disadvantaged young people achieving those grades is about 40%. And interestingly, our student population is about 37% from a disadvantaged background. And if we apply some of our own disadvantaged categories that are unique to us, it's probably around the 40%. Some of the skills challenges in the county, a lack of sort of STEM related qualifications and experience, but also by 2050, the retirement population is going to be about 60%. And you know, that's quite a difficult challenge. Our Gloucestershire is a net exporter of talent, so we train, we recruit, we improve outcomes, and then actually we lose those young people and adults to other areas. And our college very much, the first line of our strategic plan is around, we are a careers focused college, and that is what we're there for, to support young people and adults into next steps, and also to support our employers as well. And also we hold the Matrix accreditation and the Quality and Careers Standard as well. Have the next slide, please, Lucy. Okay, so I've been asked to talk to you about the triage approach, but what I did want to say is that this forms part of our 3-year careers strategic plan. So I've been the careers leader at the college since 2018, and this really forms part of that 3-year journey, and can't really be looked at in isolation. But of course, I'm talking about the actual triage approach that we've adopted at GC today. So why did we want to do it? Well, obviously to better support our students, so they have the right advice at the right time, the right signposting from the right people to ensure they have really positive outcomes. But at the time when I was appointed as careers leader, when I say a small careers team, it was me and a part-time contracted advisor 2 or 3 days a week. I'm really pleased to say that as a result of some of the interventions and the planning, we are now a slightly bigger careers team. One of my team, I think, is on call. Karen Young is my UCAS and destinations coordinator. Myself, we've recently recruited a HE advisor on a short-term contract through a pot of funding. And we've just appointed our first trainee careers advisor who's doing her level 6 apprenticeship. So we're still a really small team, but the triage model has enabled us to expand that team across college. So the reason that we decided that was what we needed to do back in 2018, looking at the Gatsby benchmarks, and I spent probably the first 3 months of my role doing a really deep dive audit into what the college was doing really well with regards to careers and what we needed to work on, because I've worked at GC for 30 years in various roles, head of tutorials, head of student experience, started out life as a lecturer. And I didn't want to assume what I thought I knew in this new role. No one had been in the role before, so it was, you know, my opportunity to carve out that role, I guess. So I spent 3 months doing lots and lots of audit work, and part of that was campus audits with 12 heads of department, so treated each one as a mini audit. I also did lots of feedback sessions with students, focus groups, interrogated the teaching and learning observation data to look at where those touch points for employability were, and were there, you know, there was great practice in some areas that we could share across, or were there missed opportunities. And of course, I had to, you know, creatively look at a very limited resource. There was no money, there is no money, there was no funding available. And I know that's something that we all struggle with. So how could I make this work on something that was incredibly limited? And I also wanted to develop the confidence of staff, because I guess in a college, you've got lots of pockets of people doing lots of things that relate to that careers education programme. So I wanted to develop the staff confidence to have those career conversations, be able to be really confident about their signposting, about the impartiality, to then be able to support true level 6 referrals, because we wanted to make that distinction between what is information and signposting and what is actually a real level 6 guidance referral. So we also then wanted to exceed quality standards, and at that point we hadn't embarked on our quality and careers standard journey either. So we wanted to work to those, and that obviously helped us then over the next couple of years facilitate, to make improvements, to develop and refine. And we wanted to be able to then judge the impact of this triage model. So I'll talk to you about impact a little bit later. And of course, to be able to influence what happens next. We are still probably understaffed in our careers team. But when I look back at that original Gatsby benchmark, Gatsby 8, you know, I was thinking, how on earth were we going to ensure that every young person had that guidance with such a small team? If I could have the next slide, Lucy, please. So this is just a representation of all of those Gatsby audits pulled together against each school. And I do this every year. I'm pleased to say now this features in part of our heads of school self-assessment reports, but this is back where we first started, and you can clearly see from there that Gatsby 1 and Gatsby 8 were our priorities. We were working quite successfully in most instances on sort of Gatsby's 5 and 6, and have continued to do so, because about 6 years ago the college decided that they would put in a whole employability team. So apart from during COVID, those were ones that we felt we could just sort of take a step back from a minute and really focus on the ones that we needed to. So Gatsby 8 and this whole guidance Gatsby was the one that we needed to focus on there and then. Next slide, please. So how did we do it? So we decided that we were going to upskill staff with a level 3 guidance qualification, and also provide training for lots of other staff around having really good career conversations. So I've already mentioned the audit, so compass, feedback, gap analysis, and collaboration was absolutely key. I am incredibly fortunate that I get to work with all the heads of department every week. So I can pitch, I can negotiate, I can influence, and I can help them to understand why we might need some wider sort of collaborative work in. It formed part of the 3-year strategic plan, And of course, it goes hand in hand with the careers education programme. So whilst we were doing really well in lots of aspects of Gatsby, there were gaps and there was nothing that pulled it together. So the careers education programme now is mapped to Gatsby, it's mapped to the CDI learning outcomes, and it's also mapped to the skill set that employers are looking for. And I wanted to put in this layer triage team. So if I give you an example, that when you go to A&E, you don't go to A&E and see a doctor straight away. You normally see a practitioner, nurse practitioner, who triages. And do you then need to go and see someone else and have some extra care or support, or actually it is what we've done for you enough to set you on your way? So that was really why we decided this triage team. And of course, then we wanted to achieve our quality assessments, quality in careers and matrix. I had to put a business proposal together to SLT. It did go back and forwards a few times. Obviously, it's all about data and impact and how are we going to know if it was working, which then informed the KPIs. And at the time, they were just my KPIs. I was accountable for, what that triage process, the success or failure of it. Now it's the KPIs of our team. And then I needed to secure some funding. So we are fortunate to have a training and development team, and I pretty much took up most of the funding because I wanted to put 14 staff through the level 3 IAG guidance qualification back in 2020. Secured a trainer. We did discuss whether we would do it in-house. And we had the expertise, but we just didn't have the capacity. So we secured an amazing trainer who we've worked with for a number of years. And whilst obviously we're constrained by the components of the qualification and the mandatory units and the optional units, we have been able to bespoke and structure the course to meet the needs of our organisation, our students, our staff, and to then look at being able to sort of future-proof it for hopefully the next group that we're going to go through this qualification. Have the next slide, please. So we decided we would deliver the level 3 IAG guidance qualification to 14 staff. We thought long and hard about when that would be the best time to deliver it. There's never a good time in education, is there? We're always so busy, but we did look at whether that sort of winter term would be a great idea, but actually decided against it. And we decided we would deliver it over 2 academic years, or it would straddle 2 academic years. So we decided to start in the February to be completed by the November. And the reason for that was that we felt, for us, our progression campaign runs sort of February to April. So the opportunities to do that sort of signposting, conversation, guidance, recording with our own students would be brilliant for their experience. But equally, come the August, September time, the opportunity then to work with some schools, young people that were thinking of coming to GC with parents, would add another dimension. And I have to say, we've stuck with that model. So our delivery model has been 3 half days a week and a full day face-to-face delivery. Now, I'll talk about COVID in a minute, face-to-face delivery. And then throughout that February to November time, staff would then be having the tutorials with their trainer. I would be doing some coaching. Some of my team would be doing a bit of coaching, and peppering that with a Microsoft Teams area where I could pose ideas, thoughts, research. The team, the level 3 cohort could ask questions and support each other. So as I said, the content was really obviously structured around the qualification, but we have been able to bespoke it a bit. And the staff originally that we identified were generally frontline staff that were already probably having those conversations. So some of our student mentor team, some of our student advisor team, some of our transitions team that work out in schools and support young people into college that perhaps might have barriers to learning. One of our apprenticeship teams started on the course. So it was a whole sort of wealth of cross-college staff. And I probably signposted those to the qual, but also some self-selected. Resources wise, obviously it costs, but from a time resource, I guess for the heads of school to give their staff the remittance to come for 3 half days and a day between February and May wasn't too onerous, as long as I was able to influence and pitch that at the very start, and they knew why and they knew the rationale. Achievement to date, so we had 100% achievement on our first group that went through, and we've just put our second group through, so they are halfway through, another 15 candidates, and hopefully, if funding allows, we're going to put another group through next academic year as well. Have the next slide, please. So some of the challenges, well, the time to develop and embed it. It wasn't a sort of a split decision. It took quite a lot of negotiating, quite a lot of to-ing and fro-in, writing the proposals. I have an incredibly supportive SLT, so you know I know how fortunate I am to have that, and not everybody has that. So I also have a quite influential careers governor that I meet with termly, so that took some time for them to understand why, look at the rationale, put those impact measures in place, and then to actually source the trainer and start. So it took some time. I didn't manage to secure funding for 3 years. I'd managed to secure funding each year, and I've had to re-pitch for that funding. Then COVID happened. So our first cohort started February 2020, and we went into lockdown in March, and all of the training was supposed to be face-to-face. So within about 3 weeks, we brought the training online. It has propelled us in directions that we never thought possible. We've put 3 amazing teams areas together that support, one for the level 3 IAG, but also one that Karen Young, my colleague, runs a UCAS teams area to publicise everything to regards to higher education, aspirational, motivational, what opportunities available. That's for staff and students, and another Microsoft Teams area that is for staff, for careers and employability opportunities, to help them with signposting that to students. And I think last count, we had 500 active users in the last 900 days. So it's propelled us in different directions, and actually that blended learning approach now of remote and a bit of face-to-face is what we've stuck with. Managing it does take some of my time, but it's time that I think is well worth spent. So doing some coaching with those level 3 IAG practitioners, looking at the quality of their signposting, and managing then and talking to the trainer, and you know, having to support with perhaps people that need some additional time, or something's happened that we need to support them with. Yes, there was a risk of it not working, and at the time it was just me when it first started out. And we wanted also to look at succession planning. So, you know, those people on that first group that took that level 3 IAG qualification, one of them is now my trainee careers advisor, and one of them has just secured the post of the HE advisor. But also there are opportunities for people who don't want to switch roles, but actually within their current role to take on a project. So for example, one of our student advisors who is responsible for our enhanced bursary students, he did the level 3 the first time round, and he quickly decided that actually those enhanced bursary students, he could see that they were traditionally late applying for their next steps. Their aspirations were perhaps a bit lower with regards to higher education, and they didn't always get their first choice, of course, because of you know, the later application or the indecision. So he proposed a project. We've worked on it this year, where they've had touch points of triage support all the way through, and he's just pulling the data together for that in a minute. But it looks really positive in that we've managed to sort of change the narrative on that. I'll talk about the impact on the next slide. And then, did we need to broaden the scope of the project? Could we broaden it? What are our next steps? And I'll talk about that on the next slide. So if I could have that, Lucy, that'd be great. Thank you. So impact. So hopefully as a result of this project, our destinations and progression data was going to improve. We had a 15% increase in HE applications in our last cycle, and our progression data is improving. Student feedback. So we were recently did our second round of our quality and career standard, and that was in February, and there were over 40 positive feedback comments in the report from students about the support that they'd received. And of course, that's not just as a result of this triage project, that is everything, but it all fits together to meet those Gatsby benchmarks. And improving staff confidence. Staff are already having these great career conversations, signposting, but I think having that qualification as well sort of rubber stamps that in some respect. And it also enabled us to streamline our referral process. So as a careers team, we could really take on the true level 6 referrals. And actually, if it wasn't a level 6 referral, we could then ask one of the triage team, could they then do the signposting IAG first, help the student to do research, explore, which then still might come back to us, but it might not. And lots of our teams supported on transitions panels. So we work across the county with our county council and our post-16 lead to ensure that our NEET numbers are not rising. We work with schools, so we do collective transitions panels where lots of the providers, GC included, attend and support the schools with those conversations about next steps. So some of our level 3 team have been able to support on those as well. And that has also then improved our relationship with alternative providers, because of course it's about impartiality. It's not about keeping the students at Gloucestershire College if that is not the right thing for them. I work quite extensively with the work placement team, so the employability and engagement manager, looking at our work placement opportunities. Obviously that took a huge hit during COVID, so our Gatsby benchmarks 5 and 6 were dipping, but in March I think we had 568 students out on placement. We have an aspirational CPD target for all our students on full-time programs of 100 hours. Some smash it, some achieve it, some don't quite achieve it, but the intention is to get every young person out on work experience, to experience working with employers and honing their work skills. As I said, we achieved our quality and career standard in 2019 and again in 2020, and we are about to do our matrix accreditation again next month, so no pressure. Next slide, please.
You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Janet.
If it's all possible, yeah?
It is possible. Thank you. So this is just some feedback from students out of our latest quality and career standard report. And I think what it highlighted to me is, so we've got, the level 1 student there talking about CVs and the development, looking at jobs, and students looking at the quizzes and the platforms and the sort of careers programs that they can work with. But equally, you've got the level 2 student there, motor vehicle, talking about the electric car market, and he'd like to be part of it and the changes with the railway industry. And our T-level nursing student talking about the growth in vacancies, due to investment in healthcare and an ageing population. Could I have the next slide, please? And then, of course, we surveyed our level 3 contingent. So we surveyed them at the start and we surveyed them at the end. We used Microsoft Forms, and this was some of the impact from the first group that went through. So just having those career conversations with students and the engagement and how valuable, increasing their own confidence and knowing that they can pass those ideas and exploration for students on. And just having great career conversations. I will also say that the level 3 guidance qual, we also did some training for staff around having great career conversations. So those that we didn't want to put through level 3 or didn't want to do level 3 or we didn't have the funding for, but we could do a much wider group having great career conversations. So I think last week, I think we had we were up to about 80 members of staff that had that career conversation and half-day training. Next slide, please. And then there's just a quote there from our recent Quality in Careers standard, which has been such a positive experience. It was something that I pitched when I was interviewed for my role as careers leader, that I wanted the college to achieve the Quality in Careers standard. And what it's done, it's enabled us to refine our strategic plan. It's enabled us to look at where our gaps are. It's been such a supportive process. So anyone who's thinking about doing it, I would thoroughly recommend it. It is a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but it's the work that actually underpins everything that you're doing. So I would say go for it. Next slide, please. That's my timer going off. So what's next for us? So Matrix, we are about to be off-studied any day. We're waiting for the call. We want to look at supervision for guidance. So as a careers team, we do supervision monthly as a small team, and we discuss cases. But actually, as this level 3 IAG team broadens, how are we going to assure the quality of it? I don't have the answers yet. I'm thinking about it. And do we bring that level 3 delivery in-house, or do we continue to use an external provider? And if we do bring it in-house, I think we will probably end up using our apprenticeship levy, because we're a big organisation. But it would have to be at level 4. And of course, with that comes the extension of the time frame. At the minute, we can do it between February and November. With a apprenticeship, it will be longer. There's the endpoint assessment, and then there's all the reviews that someone would need to do with the assessor. So that's another consideration. And looking at whether we can have career pioneers in each department, which also offers some additional staff progression, but also hopefully we'll be able to strengthen the careers team with another level 6 practitioner. So I think the next slide, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody. I think went about a minute over, Janet.
Yes,
and happy to take any questions when we do the panel. But thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you very much, Sam. We're going to break now, and we'd like you all back at 11:45, please. So 11:45, I'll be back on. And we are off now to hear from Rachel Kickley, who is principal of Cowes Enterprise College. Rachel won't be staying for the question and answer, but her deputy will be there. So over to you, Rachel, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning if I can.
Good morning. Hopefully you can see my slides and hear me.
Absolutely, Rachel, go for it.
Fantastic. Well, hello, I'm Rachel Kitley. I'm the principal of Cowes Enterprise College. We're a mainstream 11 to 18 school on the Isle of Wight and also an Ormiston Academy. So we do lead strongly on careers here at Cowes, and we were delighted to have the Permanent Secretary for Education visit us last term to see how careers work in action here, which we were really thrilled about. And we were also in the first tranche of schools nationally to receive the Quality in Career standard. So I'm going to share our work here at Cowes Enterprise College as a way to draw out the fundamental elements which I believe need to be in place to provide excellent bespoke careers guidance and provision at school level. Just shifting on my slides, they seem a bit sticky. Okay, my slides are not moving on. Is that something that can be done centrally?
Just give us a moment, Rachel, if you can, and we'll get onto that in the office. I think it should just be happening before you. So if you just let Lucy know when you want the slides moving on.
Great.
Like she's already on the case.
Okay,
Just to say as well, Rachel, actually, we can't see you at the moment. So if there's a chance to turn the camera on, that'd be great. If you're not
Sure.
comfortable with that, that's absolutely
No
fine.
problem. Okay, let me do that.
Just oh, that's it. Lovely.
Hello.
Well
Great.
done.
Okay, lovely. Right, so this slide is only designed, that's the second slide, to give you a flavour of what I'm saying. I'm not expecting you to be able to read it, but the actual document is available on our website under the careers page if you want to have a more detailed look. But what this does show you is that we've got careers mapped all the way from year 7 to 13, and it really is the golden thread which travels through our entire school curriculum, both within the formal curriculum and through all the broader experiences as well. So we live and breathe careers, and we start as we mean to go on in year 7. So this map takes you all the way through from year 7 to year 13, but we provide meaningful careers, experiences and encounters in class right back with year 7. We have local employers, for instance, supporting practical lessons. We'll have careers talks and visits, time working in industry standard facilities away from school, all the way back to year 7. As the map evolves through different year groups, it begins to look different. So for instance, as you hit the sixth form, then we have a key focus on university, summer schools, internships, apprenticeships, Russell Group and Oxbridge Aspire programmes, for instance. It's worth adding here that careers works alongside a broad and balanced curriculum. And for us, it's been the light through that knowledge, skills, perceived divide in education, which for me, I consider it to be really unhelpful and a pedagogical misnomer. So this mapped plan for careers enables us to think really coherently and strategically all the way through, taking a child in year 7 and then thinking about how we can best take them all the way through to year 11 and year 13. There are many opportunities for personalisation and bespoke guidance through this. And since developing this coherent approach, we've seen significant impact on our student destinations. So just to have a look at my notes to give you the destinations, when I began at the Academy in 2017, when careers was in its infancy, 47% of our students went to university. Now it's 83%. 6% of our cohort then went to Russell Group universities, and that's now 55%. And we have significant numbers achieving really high-level apprenticeships, including in the City of London now. Perhaps most significantly, 95% of our students this last year gone were successful in gaining their first choice. And we know this is because of the quality and time that we spend with students one-to-one on individual guidance, and that is tracked for years. We intentionally keep our staffing ratios around careers guidance really small to enable a bespoke approach. And when we see so many students gaining their first choices, we know that we're guiding them really well for what's best for them. Okay, so part of our careers work, which I'll talk about in more detail a little later, has been developing a careers portal, which is now available nationally with funding from the Careers and Enterprise Company. And I'm going to have to take back control of the screen, I think, now, because I'm going to show you one of our alumni, Amy, and it's a short film of her story. So a bit of background, neither of Amy's parents or siblings went to university. Amy didn't have any family contacts or friends who could help with work experience around an application for medical school. So we put together a very bespoke programme of intensive careers support for her to ensure that she wasn't limited at all by her background. And Amy is now at Bristol University reading medicine. All our students have completely different packages. Amy will talk more about hers in the film, but essentially she gained a place with our support at Bristol University's summer school medicine programme. She was part of what we call our Aspire Med programme. She gained regular and lengthy clinical experience through our setting up a volunteering route on her timetable on a weekly basis. So she had 2 afternoons a week for the 2 years volunteering at our local hospital. And our careers map is well planned for the 2, but we have something called a student charter that sits on top of it, which provides then a bespoke package drawing on the best bits across the overall overarching map. And that becomes a portfolio of personal development. And it's definitely not a job ladder, if you like, with set staging posts. Instead, it's about enabling our students, in this case, Amy, to really explore the wide-ranging opportunities within the health sector, rather than being set by us on a narrow job role pathway. So our careers map is intentionally not fixed. We often anecdotally call it a snake because of the way it kind of snakes through. And we think that that reflects the flexible and dynamic nature of careers. Okay, so do I need to start sharing my screen again now, I think, so that I can take you to a video?
I think there should be a box to check the audio sound when you're sharing as well, Rachel, so you can just
got that ticked. Thank you, that's really helpful. Here we go. Do come in and tell me if you can't see or hear this.
Hi, I'm Amy. I went to Cowes Enterprise College and I left in 2020, and now I'm lucky enough to study medicine at the University of Bristol. I've known for a long time that becoming a doctor was the career I wanted to pursue. My decision-making process was aided by lots of work experience placements and volunteering at a local hospital, which thankfully my school was able to help me organise. Medicine is an exceptionally hard degree course to be accepted for. I had doubts as to whether I would get into university. I informed my teachers of this, and they set up extra tuition to help with the entrance exams and organised mock interviews to give us the best possible chance of getting in. I was also encouraged to apply to the summer school at the University of Bristol, which gave me great opportunities and benefits when applying. For anyone thinking about going into medicine, I would say do what you can't. Anything you set your mind to, you can do. Work smart and not hard, be consistent, and always give it a go. Making mistakes is the best way to learn, and you'll never know if you don't try. Keep to your hobbies and enjoy yourself. Be a great all-rounder. I'd like to thank all my teachers from Cowes Enterprise College. They helped me achieve everything that I have today. They gave me the learning techniques I still swear by and shaped my learning, allowing me to get to where I am.
Okay, so I'm happy to go back to use screen sharing, as I seem to have a problem flicking my slides on there. And then if we just go on to the next slide. Great, I'll come back and talk a bit more about the portal later in my time slot, but I'm just going to think now about really thinking about how we invest in careers within school. So obviously it's really important to invest and resource as well as possible. Here at Cowes, I have a full-time assistant principal who is my careers leader. And for me, it's really important he's on the senior leadership team. He's a qualified formal careers leader. I know then I've got the best knowledge at SLT. We also fund a post-16 careers lead who is full-time qualified level 3 careers advisor, and they also work full-time here at the Academy. In addition, we buy significant time each year from a level 7 external careers advisor, and it really is significant time. And for me, that ensures that we have the right balance between internal expertise, but also external independence as well. And we've made the recent decision to further increase our level 7 careers advisors hours so that they can meet even more often with our disadvantaged and SEND students. And that we're taking these careers meetings much earlier in the school rather than kind of overdoing it a bit in year 11 and kind of not having that progression path through to it. So these cohorts of students are really prioritised as well. So they meet first with our careers guidance person at the beginning of the year so that they're really well supported. And a pupil premium student may have 4 hours just at Key Stage 4 with our level 7 advisor. We just facilitate what's needed, and we'll offer further meetings again on the 4 hours if that's good. So in addition, all our students have access to really quality signposting by embedding careers information through the curriculum. So we have an Everyone Matters PSHE curriculum that runs year 7 to 13 with an hour a week for all students, and that delivers explicit careers topics in every year, which are age appropriate across the board. We also have careers embedded through our subject curriculums, so that as different topics are being taught, our subject teachers will talk about careers and connect in with the learning. And we have the softer employment skills mapped carefully across the curriculum as well. We do invest in CPD for staff, and that focuses on quality signposting. We make sure our staff really understand our structures so that we're avoiding a situation where teachers give kind of ad hoc advice when they don't have the same quality knowledge as our experts as well. And obviously our level 7 advisor comes in and supports us on all events, on all the transition points, on options, enrolment, and works really closely with year 11 throughout the year. Okay, if we could go on to the next slide, please. So obviously strong partnerships work best if you know your local and your national context really well and work within a coherent local offer. So if everyone is competing for exactly the same children, then I really believe that children can lose out and the Baker Clause can become really problematic. And although some competition between courses and schools when you're thinking about enrolment, of course, can be healthy in ensuring high quality provision, I think at times that schools can be more concerned with recruitment than they can with the Baker Clause. But we've worked hard to find a strategic local offer beyond the school and across the schools in the area post-16 to provide both better efficiencies and coherence, but also to make sure that we are all genuinely following the Baker Clause. So, for example, here at Cowes, we've chosen not to compete with the fantastic resources of our local sixth form college. We don't offer any vocational courses at all because the sixth form college have the most fantastic resources and expertise in vocational post-16 education. Meanwhile, the college has stopped offering A-levels and we provide A-level provision. And that kind of coherent approach has enabled us to work more positively and for all our students across organisations. And we genuinely want our students to find the right provision post-16 and don't want to retain students inappropriately. What we actually find is by having this approach, we seem to have grown and grown our sixth form because we have such a coherent plan. We have a USP, there's something that we've become an expert in, and then actually that's more attractive than being quite aggressive, if you like, in the way that you recruit. So you also need to know your local employment context really well so that you can work across partnerships and obviously local businesses and employment offers. The Isle of Wight is a unique context. It's really linked to the sea and maritime, of course. And, you know, it's essential that all schools know and understand their unique local employment in that way. So for us, our Key Stage 3 curriculum really delivers across mainstream subjects an interdisciplinary approach to looking at that maritime industry of employment. So for instance, in science, our students learn about forces, upthrust, why things float or sink. That's enhanced by careers, talked about our careers being embedded in our subjects, by a visit from a professional archaeological diver. But then they'll take that learning into ICT and they'll use the knowledge of forces to develop a CAD/CAM design of a floatable hull following a visit from a naval architect. So again, we have that careers link, but then they'll take that into DT and they'll actually make their prototype boat with an apprentice boat builder in class, who's also an alumni. And all of that is happening at year 7. So it's a great way to make difficult knowledge really relevant to students while providing local employer encounters and also building over time, subtly, this real understanding of the local employment context and how rich and wonderful it is. And how you could go into our local employment opportunities around maritime with any interest, ability and passion across any subject. So I would obviously encourage schools to really think in this kind of way about their context. And then there is that national context as well, isn't there? And for us, we were influenced by the key government report, Maritime 2050, which makes a clear case that the financial security of our country is linked to our ability to attract more people to the maritime sector. And that's in part about rebalancing its ageing workforce. Okay, if we can go on to the next slide. Thank you. It's obviously also important that the school engages with expertise beyond its gate. So for us, that's about building our own knowledge and understanding of the rich employment landscape. So when we planned our new Key Stage 3 maritime-based curriculum, we wanted careers expertise to really guide us towards making the very best decisions. So I established what we called an advisory board, which actually had top field maritime experts helping us review materials and content to help shape that curriculum. They looked at knowledge needed. They looked at the breadth and scope and sequencing with us. They also looked at the employability skills that they felt were essential that we included. And, you know, we had a series of days when a large group of maritime experts from many different fields, locally and nationally, came and joined us to review several times across a period of time our plans as they developed. For example, we had a chief accounting officer from a multinational shipping conglomerate come. He flew in from Dublin to join our board and essentially helped us to be much more ambitious in our plans for Key Stage 3 geography. You know, it was very based for us around yachting and sailing and tourism. And he said, what about all those huge ships out there and that massive industry you can see out your windows? So on the back of that, we then wrote a topic about containerization and how deeply connected we are to the world through that. We're also in Ormiston Academies Trust, which is a national MAT, and we have a really strong career network beyond the school through that, and obviously utilise that national careers lead when we can. Okay, if we can pass on, please. Thank you. So you've seen Amy's film. Here are some screen grabs from Oat Futures, which you can just Google Oat Futures and you'll find the platform. That's a careers website that I've been developing with the Trust, which has a strong maritime focus, but as you can see from Amy's video, is beginning to broaden out beyond that. And the aim of this website is that it's going to provide meaningful careers-related opportunities, educate students about their options and choices, and support the development of their employability skills. And our aim is to tackle any digital divide that students might have in their house at home, to ensure that we use this platform at school. So we provide local, relevant, quality labour market information through this portal, of course in other ways as well, featuring showcases of students like them and in similar workplaces. And the platform is great because it advertises where there's work experience, apprenticeships, and we have it woven through our curriculum so that every week a child will see one of these videos in a subject integrated into the curriculum. Okay, if we can move on. Okay, so I began this talk by saying that careers education is very much the golden thread which runs through our entire school curriculum. And I think it is worth coming back to this again as I close. By seeing careers as threaded through both our formal and informal curriculum, we're able to ensure that students receive the best careers service. And obviously I've talked about our particular approach here, but I think that you could extrapolate out the key points for any context at all. What we're really thinking about is ensuring that careers are well resourced, that you have local and national partnerships that you create and exploit, that you draw on whatever local context and employment landscape you have, and that all of your local contexts are really well understood when you're planning your curriculum, as well as when you're planning your careers encounters, and that all of that integrates. It's about the culture of the organisation, ensuring that children's futures are put before competition for school funding, and where the entire focus is on removing barriers. Okay, if we can just move on to my final slide. That's a summary of my key points. And as I say, you know, I've talked particularly about doing that as a coastal school, but the points that you can take from it are entirely relevant for students everywhere across the country. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, Rachel, thank you. And I didn't need to warn you, your time was running out. So well done. I know you're not staying. Does anybody have anything burning they want to ask Rachel for a minute or two? Oh, we've gone to a different view somehow. So now everybody's been very quiet at the moment. So thanks very much. I believe you do have to go somewhere else.
Yes, I do, but you know, on that slide there's my contact details if anybody wants to get in touch, and my colleague is able to join for the Q&A session later.
I mean, What I did notice was that somebody said, yes, okay, you've got a very specific local infrastructure, if you like, or not infrastructure, but the maritime is big. But my comment is that most of you will have a LLP who will have some priorities for your area. Now, if you don't already know what those are and aren't working with them, then go and find out. The other thing is to look at things like NOMIS, which is the statistics website, but it tells you about job vacancies and things like that. There is information out there. And again, it's about changing people's attitudes and being aware that the world of work is changing as well. So I think that might help.
Yes, definitely. You know, we work really closely with the LLP, and we spent a lot of time understanding our local employment context. But, you know, wherever you are, there will be something special and slightly adjusted. You know, if you take where I used to work in London, you know, my school was on what you call the Golden Mile, and all the way down that mile, there were huge tech companies, and we connected in them with the tech companies. So there were the central offices for Sky, for instance, next door to the school. So wherever you are, there will be something unique or local to draw on. And we found working at that level, companies are extremely giving and feel very excited at what you're trying to do. Even if you're in an area where you just can't see that USP around you, there are themes that you could think about. So I've been doing some initial work in Somerset to think about instead of having a specific career, to instead think about how all careers are becoming more environmentally aware, and to focus the whole thing around green careers across industries. So there are so many ways you can be creative, but tap into what's around you.
There is, Rachel. Thank you very much. And again, we're going to move on now. And I believe it's over to John to talk about our resource.
Yes, indeed. Let me just share screen. Brilliant. Really enjoyed this morning so far and into this afternoon. And I think we've had some fantastic speakers. I just want to spend a few moments now just to kind of help to look at services and resources to support some of the things that we've been discussing as the theme's gone on. But I think what's been really interesting for me is we've looked at personal guidance, we've reframed it and to kind of help us to refresh how it can look like in a creative kind of world that we frame it in these days, which I thought was really fascinating with Leanne. We've also looked at different approaches to it through things like a triage approach too with Sam, which was really helpful. And then obviously Graham's given us more context about broader education and how we need to make sure learners are prepared with the right skills for the world of work, to include digital skills too. And obviously, you know, what we've just been hearing there from Rachel is more about how do we embed all this in a good quality careers programme, to be able to make sure that young people have got good quality sources of support so that they can able to maximise their personal guidance. So what I want to do really is just to spend a few moments to take through some of the resources. Mainly, really, I want to share with you our new quiz that we're officially launching. So I'll take you through that in a few moments, but I want to make sure you've got plenty of time to go into the Q&A. So I know we've kind of like overrun at times today, but I'll make sure you'll start your Q&A by 12:30 at the very latest. So yeah, I'll talk about the background and scope and overall purpose of our quiz. I'll talk a bit more about the supporting resources, basically so we can enable you to evaluate if you think it might be useful for your learners or not. We'll also talk about any further free and costed CPD opportunities that you can access to explore careers and to upskill your workforce or yourselves. And also we can talk a little bit more about the quality and career standard that's been a bit of a theme too, and how you can book onto a free webinar to find out more about that. So let me start with the quiz really. So this is something that we're really pleased to be able to launch. We did a webinar recently to launch this, and we're doing a bit of a staged approach with it. And today is that next stage. So Well, what is it, first of all? It's based on the Myers-Briggs personality profiling. So in the same way that things like 16 personalities is, and also things like the buzz quizzes. But this is specific to people aged 14 and upwards. So it's more mature than the buzz quiz, we feel, and it's also clearer and provides a great deal of accuracy too. What the main purpose of it is to be able to enable people to be able to really start to find out more about their character and their qualities, to be able to help them to identify their strengths, work preferences, and overall vocational personality. So they can access the quiz for free. It's open access to be able to get it now too. And I'll share the links. I'll take you through it in a few moments' time too. And what it does then really is it takes those 16 personality profiles of Myers-Briggs and it helps people to be able to find out more about themselves and their personal abilities, and help to be able to critique that as well. To say, well, you know, helping them to understand if it's like me or if it's not like me, so that we can find out more about reflecting and consolidating understanding of self and the need to keep on reflecting on that need of understanding of self. It's free and it's something that we've developed here at Complete Careers, and it will continue to be free through our approach and our values. What is it? It's, again, we want to kind of make sure that the results become as accurate as possible. So therefore, we've done like 70 questions to make sure we've taken a number of different question tiles for each particular profile to make sure that we can get the accuracy for that. So there are 70 questions, they're just multiple choice, A or B. It takes 15 to 20 minutes on average to be able to complete. When they do that, they get a personality poster that they can download and keep and or take a photo of, or whatever they want to do in the modern world. It also provides another poster which has some career suggestions, and it's only that then really. So it's careers that might be worth considering if it's linked to those particular personality profiles, just to generate ideas, and explain a little bit more about the value in that in a few moments. And those career suggestions just have live links that will just take them straight through to the National Career Service website, straight to those job profiles, where they can just find out a bit more about it. I'll talk a bit more about the lesson plan series too. But essentially, we've done a bit of a 3-tier pilot approach to this then. And what we're really finding is learners are valuing to get the opportunity to reflect on themselves and to be able to understand themselves a bit more. And they find the results quite accurate too, to be able to help them to move forward. What we'd say with any of these type of quizzes, there are lots of them about there, from 16 personalities to buzz quiz to National Career Service to career pilot, a whole host of other things. The value of them more than anything is about helping people to get a better understanding of self, trying to find out more about skills and preferences and qualities, so that you can critique that and reflect on that to move forward. And I think what we try to do, and what we've done around the Who Am I lesson plan series, is that we think it's so important to be able to do the experience learning with these quizzes. Too often young people are provided with the platform to go off and do something, they do it, they said that was quite useful, they forget about it. So what we want to do is build this into a more sustained and sustainable kind of program of learning. And we've got a series of 3 lesson plans, 3 PowerPoints that go with that, 3 sets of resources that go with that, that again are completely free. Register, you can access them straight away, so that you can make sure that this is planned and delivered in a progressive way, and young people can reflect on that and build on their career planning experience. So you go through the questions, and I'll show you those in a few moments, and then they'll get this. They'll get a summary of their profile. Those of you familiar with Myers-Briggs, you'll see the different types of letters. This one's an example of INTJ, and it'll give a very brief summary of what that particular profile is. We've given them all a different colour, we've given them all different shapes kind of thing too, so that it becomes quite unique. And then underneath that, there's something that says find out more about this profile, and you get these elements here. So you get the poster, which gives you more information to summarize the main characteristics of that vocational personality. That's personality indicator. So that obviously then they can download that, you can print it out if so wish, and then obviously there's space that they can write their notes onto that too. So the other part there as well is that you've got the career suggestions that they can click onto, which just helps them to understand the kind of things that could arguably be associated with that particular profile, just as a way to be able to help to generate ideas and to be able to reflect on self and reflect on opportunities. So you can click onto those, they'll go straight through to the National Career Service website, so that you can go where it says archaeologist, you'll go straight through to archaeologist on the National Career Service website. So what we're going to be doing then, so this is completely open access now. I'll show you how to get onto it in a few moments. We'll keep developing it, we'll keep developing more resources, and we'll keep reviewing and improving based on your suggestions. So it's about give it a go, let us know what you think, and hopefully please signpost it for your learners, but do it in a way that's planned and progressive around the lesson plans so that they get the most of it and they can reflect and grow and record their learning as they go through. I'm going to jump over that for a minute so that you don't just go straight to that, because I just want to share through a bit more about our other resources that can help with the theme today too, and then I'll just show on the website. Graham's already mentioned about fulfilling futures, and this is something that we wrote in conjunction with Greenwood Academy Trust through funding from the Careers and Enterprise Company. So we're really fortunate to be in that position to be able to do that, and we're really pleased with what we've produced there. So I know Sean put this into the chat earlier on, so I'd encourage you to do that again, Sean, if you're around still, or Rachel, or the office team. I've got the link there. But essentially what it is, it's kind of like a comprehensive career planning resource, is probably the best way I can describe it. Designed for 15 to 18-year-olds in that stage, not age approach. So obviously some 15-year-olds will be switched on and will need quite high-end support. Equally, there'll be some 18-year-olds that are still at their early stages of career planning. So there's lots of information in there. It's built around the DOTS program, around decision-making opportunities, transition and self. So you can skip to the sections that are right for you. And there are tasks all the way through to help move forward with your career planning, either the basic stages, which we call move on, or the more advanced ones, which we call go further. There's also a skills log, an activities log, a checklist about all the things that they can be doing, an action planning space at the end. So it's all completely free, and it's all widely available on the Greenwood Academy Trust website. So you'll see the actual Fulfilling Futures publication to download, to use. You've got free copyright to be able to download it and print it off to use with your learners. That's absolutely fine. There's also the teacher information pack that supports that as well. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit more about CPD support too. You'll see there's a picture of our CPD brochure that's got free and costed training opportunities. So mainly a series of masterclasses that we do from like 3:30 till 5, just about every month really. So do look out for that. We'll put the link into the chat, and I'll show you that briefly in a moment about where to find that. So it shows those masterclasses. It also shows more about some accredited training. There's more information about the level 3 triage course too, that Sam and others have been referring to. I think what I just want to share there then really, just reflecting on what we've been discussing on triage today, is that I get asked this quite a lot really, because we do provide career guidance services, and so they're thinking, well, surely with triage that means that you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot and there's not going to be as much guidance needed. But what we find is it's actually the opposite really, because What it means, taking on from what Leanne was saying, is that it's about providing better quality personal guidance. Those that need the support and really want the support, it's about giving them at least 45 minutes of guidance, but having multiple access to that so that you can really get to use some of those techniques that Leanne was talking about and really help them to move forward. But also to say that, you know, that the lower level or more basic information advice could be done with somebody that you can train up internally. And obviously Sam's just given us some fantastic examples about how that works in practice. When you've got like 10,000 learners in a post-16 setting, it's impossible to give everyone guidance. Therefore, it's about equipping people with the knowledge and skills to be able to provide information and advice. And I think we've got a lot to learn really from the school setting about how we can provide that in a secondary education setting too, and actually really utilize and maximize the personal guidance that we're actually providing to be able to make it be far much more impactful really, by giving it more time and more opportunities for repeat guidance sessions. We're also delivering on the career development apprenticeship. So this is an opportunity for anybody that's interested in training to be a guidance practitioner to be able to get that training in many cases free of charge through that apprenticeship levy system. So if anybody's interested in training up for that, do drop me a line. We'll put my email address into the chat so that you can just let us know if you're interested. And of course, we can help with any bespoke training needs as well, should a need arise. The last part before I go on and share screen to look at the website for a moment is about the quality and career standards as well. So that's been referred to a number of times to help really provide this kind of foundations, I guess, then really the sound careers education program effectively, the CEIA, to be able to maximize the space for personal guidance for the G. So yeah, if anybody's interested in finding out more about that, we've got a live webinar that's going to be taking place on the 11th of May. That's on the quality and career standard, and it'll help you to find out more about, well, what is the quality and career standard? What does it actually look like, you know, behind the title, and when you break it down into the process of working towards it, when do you need to start engaging with it? All those kind of things will be provided in that webinar, and you know, that's completely free to sign up to, and it's admin@complete-careers.com. So most of the communications you've got about the conference today, just drop admin a line, and we can make sure that you're booked onto that and get the link for it. Okay, now I'm just going to stop sharing. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing slides. I'm going to go through to the website. Now, hopefully that's come through with you too. But if not, just somebody shout at me, please, and I can soon see if I can do something.
You've got 5 minutes, John.
That's absolutely perfect. Thank you, Janet. CPD brochure. So I mentioned that before. Just to go back. So this is the main Complete Careers website, courses and events, and you can simply hover over that, and there's a CPD brochure. And then on there, if you just scroll through, page 4 gives you more information about that accredited career courses, the level 3 triage provision, other elements that we're providing. And then when you look here at page, what page is that one then? Page 6, it just gives you a bit more of an understanding about different masterclasses that we're providing along the way there too. And obviously, you know, there's a lot more information in depth on page 20 and 21 on that level 3 provision too. Okay, I'm going to come off that, and I'm going to go straight onto the quiz. This is what the quiz looks like. You'll see you can access this. It's careersquiz.complete-careers.com. Ironically, we did a bit of we had Complete Careers Quiz as a bit of a holding name until we found something a bit more appropriate. and we did lots of kind of like learner voice surveys, and they came back to say that they want it to be called Complete Careers Quiz. So it's kind of stuck, and it's kind of what it is. So here you'll find unique website with the quiz. You can take the quiz, and it's open access. You don't need to register to take the quiz. You can signpost learners, parents, carers, adults to that, and it's there to go. It's just that series of questions, 5 pages of answers A or B. What happens in a particular scenario? Attending a party, and you just click through. What do you prefer to look at in your free time? And then obviously it will come up with your results, kind of thing, as I shared with you on that slide about the summary thing, and then the poster with more information. Just wanted to finish really by saying again and reiterating that it's not necessarily about the quiz and the results that's most important. It's more about helping people to get a better understanding of self, and to be able to help them to be able to afford that time to be able to use this quiz along with others, to be able to reflect and build and record their career learning and progress. So you'll see here you can log in and register, and you register, and that gives you access to the supporting resources that we've got here. It's completely free to register as well. What you'll see is that we've got the before, during and after, basically, lesson plans. So you've got a lesson plan, which gives you very clear instructions about what you can do beforehand, and also links through to the CDI. And then you've also got the PowerPoint that you can use to be able to show some slides around this, then to be able to help to deliver it. And finally, there's also the worksheets or resources to make sure that they can capture something from the experience, record their career learning, and perhaps provide a means where you can give some formative feedback on as well, to help them to develop and to help them actually remember the activity of doing the quiz, and to be able to make sure that they can progressively move forward with their career planning. So I think we can put it into the chat in terms of the quiz link, so you can have a look at it, and then you can see what it's like, and you can make a judgment about if it's something that you think will be worth promoting with your learners. But you can register and you can access those resources should you be using the quiz or not. I think I've got a minute to spare, Janet, but rather than take it up, I'm going to pass over to you if I can, and we can come on to the Q&A for the panel session.
Thank you, John. Yes, I have a few questions for the panel. Most at the moment for Leanne, but I'm just waiting in case any come through from social media. So, Leanne, first of all, how would you measure the impact of a new creative technique?
There we go. Hello, everybody. So, yeah, measurement. It's an interesting, because I actually think, I'm hoping I'm going to answer this right. Please pop into chat if this isn't what you mean by I'm interpreting the question. Measuring impact, we focus a lot on destinations. And when you look at the evidence and the research, we need to focus more on growth in learning and behavior, because there's so many variables. Destinations are important, but there's lots of variables. And so looking at the career competencies, if you take Scotland as an example, they use those to measure distance travelled. So they do some in year 9, year 10, 11, and scaling with do group work on them and scale where the person is. And then after an experience, scale again. And so that measures that. I'm hoping that's what it means. So that's a very useful way of using the career competencies before and after.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for that, Leanne. David is doing Rachel's answering for her. David, I do have a question about how much time you buy in the level 7. Do you know the answer to that, David? Is David there? Maybe not at the minute. Okay, John, I have a question for you about whether the level 6 course you've been talking about was in person or online. I think is that the apprenticeship probably?
Yeah, both. So it's about, yeah, there's a blend of both. So if you need any more information on that, I didn't actually put my email address in, so I'm just going to do that now. Just drop me a line and happy to share any more.
I've also got an interesting question maybe you could all comment on. Somebody says, you know, if you don't make, no, that's maybe not quite the right word, but if in a college, for example, you allow students to opt in for a guidance interview rather than insisting, and yet some of the ones who you feel, know, suspect are most in need of it and don't actually ask for it, what's your approach there, or is there an answer you would give? Shall I? Did you understand the question, or did I make it too complicated?
I understood it.
Go for it.
You want me to go for it? I think I tried to reply in the chat because I didn't know if I'd have time to do it. But I think the main thing is that we've got to do a better job at selling the benefits to the young people. And that's why one of the things some advisors use are prompt cards with the possible benefits they could gain from seeing a careers advisor. So we spot they need help. They haven't asked for it. So we have to be really explicit as to how we think they could benefit and help them choose the benefits of seeing somebody. The other thing is motivational interviewing technique, which is you get them to imagine the future if they haven't prepared and haven't talked to someone about their future, and imagine and feel the consequences, and then imagine if they do see a career practitioner and the benefits and the best case scenario. So I think career advisors are pretty good in what we call the contracting stage at selling it to the young person. So by all means, I think what happens is people send them along, they've got a contract, but then it's an offer. And if after having that explained and discussed it, they still don't want to do it, you have to respect that choice because they're not going to engage anyway. And quite often, once they feel respected and given the choice, they come back at a later stage. So,
Julianne, on any comments on that, or Graham, about could you force people to have a careers interview? Or
I think, you know, I completely agree with Leanne, really, and I think, you know, I think the closed answer to that question is no, you shouldn't force people. But I think this is really what we're talking about with the importance of getting the foundations right for personal guidance. So too often it's an experience that we set up and we provide for learners. We don't often do too much around getting the careers education foundations, you know, right and set, or B, kind of like making sure that learners know exactly what to expect from a guidance interview and the benefits of that, then really, and to know, you know, the nuts and bolts of it. So I think the more it's embedded, the more they can understand the benefits of it and what it is and what it isn't. Then it becomes less scary, and they might think that actually, yeah, this is something that might well help me.
I think if I just add to that, I think it's.
Oh, sorry,
also,
Graham.
Sorry. Go on, Sam. You go first.
All right, Sam.
I was just going to say and agree with John that helping young people to understand what is a careers guidance appointment and what's going to happen at it and what might be possible outcomes of it are really, really important. We're just starting to do some podcasts on that very topic, and also we've started doing a series of 10-minute or less, like little short videos. They've been predominantly with our alternative providers, but actually we're planning one about what is a careers guidance appointment, what happens at it, who might be your guidance practitioner. So hopefully young people can feel a little bit more comfortable to then sort of make some of those decisions. But equally, our careers guidance programme is filters all the way through our tutorial program. So actually it's peppered all the way through when they start with us, right through to when they progress onto something else or a higher level of course, that there is a slot on their timetable that's a double staff slot actually with their curriculum member of staff and their student mentor. And those progression conversations are happening all of the time throughout their course, and we're sort of asking them about aspirations, ambitions at the beginning, and they may have some or they may not know, but actually they're measuring that across time and recording that across time as to where then that takes them. And then the careers team are going into those sessions as well, so we're a familiar sort of face, so hopefully it's not as daunting or as scary as perhaps they might think. They might not understand what it means. So yeah, lots and lots of touch points. I sort of call it a pincer movement, really. Lots of people doing lots of things to support that sort of careers education advice and guidance.
Thank you, Sam. Graham?
A similar theme to Sam, really. I think it's a series of things where you're engaging over a long period of time young people's interest in what they can do when they leave education. You know, and that starts very young, and it's a gradual thing. So, you know, you get a young person that's actually got some interest in something that they may not have had. Then, you know, in terms of the interview itself, it makes a lot more sense and has more meaning, and probably a little bit less scary, because going into that, they've got some idea of what they are looking to get out of it. So I think it's a whole number of things rather than the actual meeting itself. You know, and you see that young people, once they're enthused about something and they're aware of something, they'll engage in it a whole different way. So it's you know, to Sam's point, I think it's quite a broad set of things and interventions and experiences, particularly experiences and employer experiences in particular, that I think really give a good backdrop for young people engaging in that.
Thank you for that. We do have a little bit around SEND, but also before we move on to that, I like the fact that you're all sort of trying to sell the careers interviews to the learners, but I think it's also hugely important to make sure all the staff understand what careers guidance is and what a careers guidance interview or one-to-one session might or might not achieve. I'm an ex-teacher, and I am very aware sometimes that some teaching staff still don't really understand what the skill set is and what a one-to-one guidance interview is attempting to do, and think that they're quite capable of doing it. Now, I would say that most of them probably aren't. I certainly wasn't, and I'm never going to be. I'm far too directive. Any of you know me would know that I struggle with the whole concept of guidance and whatever. But I do think the underpinning knowledge and so on is important. But do try and train your staff. And Sam, your model of training lots of people, and Cow's model, and you know, Leanne likes to train people. The more people who understand what we're doing here as a professional body, I think is really important. And I think that is sometimes still a bit of an issue in education. So somebody was just asking about SEND, and now my initial comment is SEND is such a broad spectrum that it's all about individualization, but it isn't necessarily about what you're going to learn next, or possibly even the job of work if you might have, but it's about what can you do and how can you contribute. I'll let you just come in, but I interestingly did a quality assessment fairly recently on a school which had significant autism, behavioural needs, etc. But young people were working and making things and then selling them online or selling them in the state, you know, so that it was really quite interesting to see how this school had grasped that, yes, maybe these young people couldn't go into a workplace and do something very specific there, but they could set up and use their own creative talents, etc. But comments on special needs?
Sorry, just to interrupt you, Janet, David is back now. I know you had a question for him. I don't know whether his mic's on, but he is back in the meeting. Sorry.
Thank you.
Hello, yes, I'm back.
Hello, we were just talking about special needs, but prior to that, David, I had asked you briefly, because somebody had said specifically, did you know how many days you bought in your level 7 external person?
Yeah, I have to check that, but we on a ground we aim for 2 days a week throughout the year. So that's basically what we do in terms of how many days I haven't worked that out. But
Thank you.
He's here Monday and Tuesday throughout the year.
Lovely. Thank you. Any comments around SEND and how you modify guidance and programs?
I'll share about the personal guidance because I think it came out of that session. And I will just flag up, whoops, I'm hoping that made a noise. Can you see that? That's
Yep.
3-stage model. In a one-off interview, the advisor obviously will work through all 3 stages. But when they're working with people over an extended period of time, obviously that becomes a process. And with some, it might just be you do stage 1 and the communication and the rapport and the purpose. People who might have attention issues, you might break that into bite-sized chunks. People who don't want to be in a closed room with one person, you might do that walking. So you take into account the environment and neurodiversity. And it becomes a process model that a number of people can contribute to. So you might have a number of people involved in identifying the career management strengths and needs, the young person, the parents, the tutors. So it becomes a group process rather than just a one-to-one. There are loads of ways in which it can be adapted, and that's why there's arrows everywhere.
Thank you. That's brilliant. John, did you want to contribute to that at all?
Yes, please. Yeah, so completely agree with everything that Leanne mentioned there. And it's for me, it's not a SEND issue. For me, it's a needs issue. So addressing the learner's needs. So they could be gifted and talented, they could be disaffected. It's about making sure we provide the right provision for the learners, and making sure that those that are a bit hesitant or reluctant or resistant or need a bit of break, that it's exactly what Leanne's saying there. So they might need more interventions, and you might not get very far in the first couple of sessions just to break down those initial barriers. But it's about not only then about just providing more exposure, so it's a more regular access to guidance, but it's about using the variety of models and methods to be able to bring in some of those visualizations, bring in some of the cards. Not seen the Jenga before, Leanne, by the way, but I thought that's brilliant. And you've put that up into the chat as well, but in terms of the less session plan. So thank you for that. So for me, it's less of a SEND and more of a identifying needs. If I could just stay on for a second, because I just want to kind of contribute to what you were saying before, Janet, which I thought was really, really insightful about not only just the learners understanding what guidance is, but staff. And I broaden that out to parents and carers in society too. We do, as a sector, still have quite a stigma attached to what careers is and what guidance isn't, kind of thing. And it's not something that's going to change overnight. The CDI are doing quite a lot around this, and will do a lot around this over the next couple of years. But it's not something we can just sit back and leave to the professions, the professional bodies in the sector. It starts with every one of us. So if we're in a position where we can clearly, describe what careers guidance is and what it isn't, and we can share that with all staff, and we can make sure that learners know about that, not just in year 10, so right down from year 7, so they know what to expect. And we can get in a position where we can clearly communicate that to our parents, carers and community, then we can really start to chip away at the problem and really start to look at solutions.
Thank you.
And I just add in terms of some of the opportunities around engaging with young people with SEND through technology. I keep talking about technology. It's taken me a while to sort of even really get into this at all, because I think the world's changing so rapidly. We need to, but so you take a number of the challenges young people with SEND are going to have around acquiring those employability skills. So around problem solving, working in teams, doing things that necessarily might require you to work with peers. Well, you take something like Minecraft, esports. you know, there's pathways there that actually allow you to acquire many of those skills for general use going forward, but also then potentially, you know, depending upon the young person's level of neurodiversity, it's into some really high value grade jobs. But so I think there's some really creative ways of using things to engage with young people that sometimes have been more difficult to engage with. And I think that's, you know, there's some huge opportunities there that I think we could take advantage of.
Absolutely, Graham. Sam, do you want to contribute something at that point?
I was also going to add that, you know, we have quite a significant SEND provision at the college, and the careers team actually only recently, within the last couple of weeks, sort of recognised that we need to be better at supporting those young people who are neurodiverse when they're coming for careers appointments. So actually, our autism coordinator did a brilliant training session for our careers team, and also the next cohort of our level 3s that are doing the training at the minute, 4 of them are now our SEND review leads as well. But equally for them to be upskilled, but also for them to share their experience with the rest of the staff that are in that group as well. And we also offer at the college, we have a supported internship programme. So for young people that maybe do have additional needs, but will transition hopefully successfully into some sort of workplace, they have a supported internship route where it's a bit like an apprenticeship, but with our sort of SEND and transitions team supporting them all the way through, and the employers there know their needs, the reviews have happened, and they're supporting them whilst they're on that workplace. So, and we've had some really successful outcomes. You know, one young man is now working in a local spa, high class hotel and spa, and he's a spa butler. So, you know, we've had some real successes with that, but as a careers team we recognise that we need to be better, and it's something that is on our next sort of round of training, that we're going to be looking at how we offer those appointments, where we offer them, when we offer them, who can be there to support, particularly, are there parents that perhaps would come along with that student, their student mentor will be there. So yeah, a whole load more to do.
Thank you, Sam. We are getting a few questions about training, and we know that's important. I would say to many of you, though you may be competent to deliver your own training to some of your staff, remember there are resources out there like the Career Development Framework and the Gatsby benchmarks. And if all your staff don't know what those two things are, then you've got a very good couple of resources to do a session anyway. Well, I think I'm going to leave the panel. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you for people who are still here. We've obviously got people having to go to lunch and to other things. I am just very briefly going to round the conference off by getting us all to remember what it was called, which was Building Resilience to Maximise Career Guidance. And I think that links very much to what Graham was saying about the fourth industrial revolution and the way things are changing. Complete careers ourselves, in a way, are testament to our resilience when we were made redundant from the public sector nearly 7 years ago, John. And yet we have set up as an independent company and now employ people and have continued to run conferences. Also, I will never forget coming back, nearly got stuck in New Zealand. I wouldn't have minded too much, but nearly got stuck in New Zealand when the pandemic struck. Came back and I had a training session that normally I would have gone as a person to and delivered to career leaders, and I very rapidly, and I do mean very rapidly, had to work out how to use Zoom and how to put people into breakout rooms and how to make sure that I could cope with the technology to allow us to do our work. And I now work almost completely differently. But I am aware that that's only minor in some ways compared to what may be coming for these learners. So resilience is huge, and the one-to-one interactions is important. My other big strength is, as John just said, we need to get our professional reputation out there, like the teaching profession in a sense. There is still ongoing research as to whether we should become chartered. I'm not sure that's the answer, but it might be. Also, is our education fit for purpose? I personally, as an ex-teacher, think no, it's not really anymore. And I do wish some of the government would get a grip on the fact that we need to do much more around digital education and less around some of the traditional skills. I'm not saying some of them aren't useful because they can be transferable, but it's interesting that we work with schools, and their primary schools are a key in this in some ways, and we work with more and more. And yes, they're developing it and they're encouraging kids to apply for jobs. But then when you say to them, and how do they apply to the jobs? They do it in handwriting. And we sort of say, well, is it a good idea to be encouraging them to apply online? Because chances are they won't actually have to fill in an application form. But so is education fit for purpose? Are we resilient enough to deal with the fourth industrial revolution? And again, I would also say the local emphasis, particularly perhaps from the Cowes School, but other places as well. It's important for both the learners and the staff, I think, to have a clear understanding of where employment is at in their area. What are the priorities? And okay, it's changing. Maybe you only need to go into the office once a week, if that, and you can work somewhere else. But on the other hand, what is the technology that might require people to manage it? And can you do that remotely? Or here in Lincolnshire, we have a lot of what they call it, field to fork, the food industry and processing. Some of it is very technological, some of it is still labour intensive. But knowing about that, one other thing I would just briefly say, I'm always interested about how people make decisions or have been, and I'm very aware the careers world doesn't talk too much about different careers models of decision making. You mentioned, Leanne, I think the idea of pros and cons, but I recently, well, in the last year or two, discovered that the business world actually has large numbers of decision making models, and it might be useful for us to hook into some more of those somewhere along the line. But I think the main thing from today, we want people to be resilient, but we also want them to have open minds in this changing world, and to be able to get the support that ideally we and other people can provide them. And that careers should be ideally, and I know I'm talking to the converted by you coming to our conference, but careers should be central to any education programme, because if it isn't, then you're not really thinking about the future, and the future is what matters. So it's about open minds in the changing world. The sooner we can start it, the better, and the longer it can go on, the better. So thank you again to all our speakers, but also to our tech support in the background, like Lucy, Peter and Brandon's helped us out. To all of you who've turned up, and you didn't quite all make it through to the very end, but for those of you who are still here, thank you very, very much. And there is the recording available, which will obviously allow you to access all the resources. So enjoy the rest of your day. We are keeping to time as ever. I do my best. In fact, I think I've finished 4 minutes early. But do hang on if you want the last 4 minutes. We won't go anywhere.
Thanks, Janet. And thank you everyone for coming along today. It's been brilliant. And we know what the world of work's like now for remote conferences. So we had 300 spaces available. We took every one of those, so 300 registrations, and most of those kind of the world gets in the way, and so therefore they've said, can we access the recording later? So for those of you that have accessed it through the recording, I hope you've also found it interesting and insightful, and please do get in touch with us if there's anything we can do to support. And yeah, we'll keep this open for a couple of moments. If you've got any questions, do keep popping them in, but I think everyone's pretty much ready for a bit of lunch.
Yeah, the numbers are dropping fast. I'm keeping an eye.